Chapter 926. This old man did not have any wrinkles on his face, and his complexion was extremely good. He had the air of a transcendent being, looking like an otherworldly cultivator. At that moment, the old man had a conflicted and puzzled look on his face. That's not right. The purple light is surging towards the sky from this direction. The Son of Heaven is here. The old man looked at Ning Shu again and shook his head. No, it's not this girl. Ning Shu just looked at him silently. This old man should be Poppy's master. He did not know if he could tell that Poppy had great fortune, or if his personality was right for him, but he insisted on making Poppy his disciple. This old man was someone with real ability. He knew the art of divination, and also knew some health-preserving techniques. After becoming Poppy's master, he taught Poppy quite a few skills. Ning Shu could not help but rejoice in his heart. Fortunately, he had not chattered with Poppy and had decisively kept Poppy's soul. Otherwise, this master who had come to rescue him would have saved Poppy, and he would have cried his eyes out. In the future, he must be decisive when doing things. If he did not succeed, he could not be complacent. No one knew what would happen in the next moment. Old mister, it's not good for you to barge into a girl's boudoir like this. Ning Shu said with a cold expression. Pei Lon was clearly outside, but why was she not making a sound? The old man knitted his long eyebrows tightly. Girl, you. Forget it. I'd better go somewhere else to look. It was clearly this place where the purple light was surging towards the sky. The old man shook his head in puzzlement. Purple light surging towards the sky. Are you sure? Shouldn't it be the yin energy surging towards the sky? The purple light meant that Poppy had the destiny to become an emperor. You only saw the purple light surging towards the sky, but did you not see the negative karma surging towards the sky? Farewell. I won't see you out. Ning Shu said indifferently. The old man jumped out of the window with a puzzled look on his face. Ning Shu quickly opened the door and saw Pei Lon sleeping on the ground. Suddenly, a small stone was thrown over and hit Pei Lon. Pei Lon, who was sleeping, woke up. Miss, what's wrong with me? Pei Lon opened her eyes in a daze. Ning Shu narrowed his eyes. This acupoint sealing skill was not bad. He should learn it when he had the chance. It's nothing. You just lay on the ground and slept. Ning Shu turned and went back into the house. Pei Lon furrowed her brows in confusion. Ning Shu stretched his neck, feeling rather tired mentally. So, he laid down on the bed to rest. Since he had gotten rid of Poppy, the biggest problem in his body, it was time to relax. From the moment she entered this entire world, her mind had been extremely tense, and she had to be on guard against Poppy, who was in the same body as her at all times. He also had to prevent the Poppy from stealing his body. Ning Shu told Pei Lon not to disturb him. After resting for a while, he fell into a deep sleep. After sleeping for an unknown amount of time, Ning Shu opened his eyes. In front of him was a magnified face, staring straight at him. Moreover, it was staring cross-eyed. Old mister, don't tell me you still want to be a flower thief at your age, Ning Shu calmly said. Was there anyone else in this room before? The old man asked. He didn't see wrongly, nor did he calculate wrongly. It was this place that was filled with purple energy. How did it disappear without a trace? However, he was certain that it wasn't the girl in front of him. There wasn't any purple light on her body, but there was a faint purple light. He guessed that she was related to the imperial family. That purple light was very strong and very obvious. He could see it with a single glance. Ning Shu was a little speechless. He was clearly a cultivator from outside the continent, so why did he want to find someone with a purple light that was filled with purple light? Could it be that his disciple had unified the continent, so what benefit did he get? If there weren't any benefits, why was he so active? What are you looking at me like that for? The old man saw this girl staring at him with a strange expression. He couldn't help asking, "Why are you looking at me like that? Is this girl not like a normal person?" If it was a normal person, they would already be shouting and screaming. How could they be so calm? "I am a normal person. I just want to ask if my maid fainted again?" Ning Shu asked. The old man nodded, "That's right. Why do you keep saying you are looking for someone with a purple light that is filled with purple light?" Ning Shu casually asked. The old man shook his head, "It's nothing. I just want to see what Son of Heaven looks like." Ning Shu only chuckled twice. "I don't see anyone with a purple light that is filled with purple light." Ning Shu's lips curled, "Old mister, please leave. If you are treated as a flower thief at this age, you won't be able to protect your integrity in your later years." The old man stroked his beard and couldn't help but sigh. He jumped out of the window again and threw pebbles at Pei Lon as he left. Pei Lon crawled up from the ground with a stunned expression. She didn't know why she was lying on the ground again. Ning Shu sat on the bed. It wasn't that she didn't want to take this old man as her master and wanted to learn his pressure point technique, but this old man clearly had a request and wouldn't accept a disciple like her. What he wanted was a disciple with a soaring destiny, a disciple that could accomplish great things. Ning Shu didn't believe that there weren't any benefits. She just didn't know what benefits there were. "Young miss, you're awake." Pei Lon entered the room and walked to Ning Shu's bedside to ask, "Does young miss want to eat now?" Ning Shu grunted and let Pei Lon prepare the meal. While they were eating, Pei Lon kept staring at Ning Shu, looking like she had something to say. "Speak. What is it now?" Ning Shu asked. "It was nothing more than money." "Young miss, have you forgotten something?" Pei Lon knelt down. "Didn't young miss say that you want to build a power that can protect yourself, a power that can help young miss reach the peak? Why hasn't young miss done anything yet?" Pei Lan's words were interrogative towards the end. She was clearly dissatisfied with Ning Shu's lack of action. Ning Shu glanced at Pei Lon and felt that Pei Lon was already rebelling. She had submitted to Poppy, and now that Poppy was no longer around, it was normal for Pei Lon to have other thoughts. "I have my own plans for this matter. Put away the dishes." Ning Shu waved his hand at Pei Lon. Pei Lan's expression was a little unhappy. She did the work of a servant every day. When would she have the strength to take revenge? Staying in the Feng manor, she felt that Feng Chang was more and more cunning. They had no way of taking revenge at all. Going alone was just sending themselves to their deaths. The siblings had placed all their hopes on young miss, but she did not seem to be keen on pursuing power at all. She was obediently being the Feng family's young miss. Pei Lon pursed her lips and tidied up the dishes on the table. After Pei Lon left, Ning Shu put away the makeup box on the dressing table. She also put away some of the expensive jewelry and some of the silver. Originally, Ning Shu did this just in case, and also to guard against Pei Lon. He did not think that Pei Lon would really sneak into the room at night to look for things. Ning Shu sat cross-legged on the bed and silently watched Pei Lon take out an oil lamp and touch it here and there. Damn, people really had different lives. Poppy could get a lackey just by showing off, but when it was her turn, the lackey wanted to steal her things. Oh my God, the luck in her body was rapidly decreasing. To be more accurate, it was Poppy who had the luck. Once Poppy left this body became an insignificant side character. Chapter 927. Pei Lon felt around for a while but didn't find anything. She became more alert and immediately turned to leave the room. Pei Lon felt a little uneasy. The jewelry was clearly still on the dressing table during the day, but now it was gone. When Pei Lon passed by the bed, she raised the oil lamp to see if the person on the bed had woken up. In the end, when the light shone on the bed, a faint face appeared, staring straight at her. Pei Lon was so frightened that she almost screamed and threw the lamp away. "Miss. Pei Lan fell to her knees and said calmly, "Miss, I came in to see if you were asleep. Do you need anything?" "I'm fine." "What are you doing here?" Ning Shu's expression was cold. I just came to see you. It's autumn now and the weather is cold. I came to see if you kicked off your blanket." Pei Lan's voice was trembling. "Since you don't have any orders, I'll take my leave." Pei Lan took the oil lamp and ran out in a panic, closing the door behind her. Ning Shu got off the bed and prepared to look for Pei Lan. She wouldn't keep Pei Lan by her side. Without the domineering aura of a main character, she wouldn't be able to suppress the Pei siblings. She wouldn't pay attention to people with ill intentions. Ning Shu went to Pei Lan's room. There was a faint light in Pei Lan's room. Ning Shu pushed the door open and found that there was no one in the room. Ning Shu frowned. Pei Lan couldn't have run away, right? 2333, turn on the tracking system, Ning Shu said. It would be a waste not to use something that cost 5 merit points. A red dot appeared in Ning Shu's mind. Ning Shu followed the system's instructions and finally found Pei Lan in the fake cave in the garden. Pei Lan was curled up in a ball. When the light from the lamp in Ning Shu's hand shone on her, she immediately stood up and ran. Ning Shu grabbed her collar and said, "Why are you squatting here in the middle of the night? Don't tell me you're pooping." Pei Lan didn't know what Ning Shu meant by poop. Now that she was grabbed by the collar by Ning Shu, the bad feeling in her heart became even worse. She tried her best to break free from Ning Shu's grip, but she was dragged by him to Orchid Garden. After returning to Orchid Garden, Ning Shu closed the door and sat on the chair, looking at Pei Lan indifferently. Strictly speaking, it was Poppy who had bought Pei Lan. She was not Pei Lan's master, but Pei Lan had offended her by trying to steal something. She seized the opportunity to get rid of Pei Lan. Pei Lan knelt on the ground and kowtowed. "Why did you steal?" Ning Shu asked. Pei Lan raised her head and looked at Ning Shu. Her eyes were filled with tears, and she didn't speak for a long time. Ning Shu wasn't in a hurry. After all, he wasn't the one kneeling. She sat on the chair and drank water. It was quite comfortable. "Your servant knows that I'm letting Miss down by doing this, but us siblings can't wait any longer. We want to have the power to take revenge," Pei Lan said as she cried. Ning Shu said, "Stealing gives you the power to take revenge? Incomprehensible." As expected, they were born because of the female lead. When the female lead became stronger, these people could rise up. Now that Poppy was dead, this Pei Lan had other ideas. Now, she actually wanted to steal her things. Big Brother doesn't have any money on him anymore. Big Brother has been waiting for young Miss orders, but young Miss hasn't done anything yet. Pei Lan said, "Back then, young Miss said she would give us the power to take revenge, but, Ning Shu, no money? Can't a man earn his own money to support himself?" Oh, he couldn't be bothered to work hard, so he just stole things and sold them to make a name for himself. No one else could come up with such logic. She let you escape the status of slaves, but now she couldn't fulfill their wishes, and it became her fault. It was also Poppy who had taken on all the responsibilities and bragged so much that this pair of siblings had such high expectations of Poppy. But she was not Poppy, and she did not have the heart to set up some assassin group, or some brothel. "Miss, please forgive me." Pei Lan kowtowed to Ning Shu, "Your servant will never have such thoughts again." Ning Shu grinned and went to find Lady Wang, saying that he wanted to sell off his maidservant. Ning Shu couldn't go find Feng Chang for this kind of inner courtyard matter. Feng Chang's temper wasn't very good. If he went to find him for such a small matter, he would be scolded again. Lady Wang was very cold to Ning Shu. When she heard Ning Shu say that he wanted to sell off his maidservant, she asked for the reason. Ning Shu said that the maidservant stole things. Lady Wang had a servant call over a servant and said to Ning Shu, "This maidservant is yours. Also, the slave contract is not with the Feng manor. You can deal with it yourself. When Pei Lan heard that Ning Shu wanted to sell her off, she immediately knelt at Ning Shu's feet and begged, "Miss, don't sell this servant. This servant was really wrong. She never wanted to go to that dirty slave house again. She was sold like an animal without any dignity. She was also the daughter of a general, but she had been wronged in the slave house. That was why the hatred in her heart was so strong. She wanted revenge at all costs. Now that she was going to return to the slave house, Pei Lan couldn't help but tremble. She realized that life in the general's manor wasn't all that good. If there was no comparison, there was no comparison. But Ning Shu's expression was indifferent. He wouldn't keep this kind of person by his side. She was loyal to Poppy, and she wanted to get revenge on the Feng family. Only someone with a screw loose would keep their enemy by their side. "Miss, you didn't keep your word. You broke your promise." Pei Lan saw that Ning Shu was indifferent and couldn't help but shout, "Miss, you promised me and my brother. That's why my brother and I are so loyal to you. Are you going to abandon us like this? You are nothing more than slaves bought with money. What right do you have to question me?" Ning Shu said with a frown. The more they gave, the more they promised, and the more they wanted. Because Poppy had promised a beautiful future, Pei Lan was unwilling to just obediently be a maidservant of the Feng family. If she wanted revenge, she had to have the power to get revenge. Ning Shu waved his hand and had the servant take Pei Lan away. Pei Lan cursed Ning Shu, cursing Ning Shu for not having a good ending. Ning Shu, they were all cursing her like this. "Tsk, Ning Shu said to the servant, "Sell her far away. Don't let her stay in the capital." "Fourth miss, don't worry," the servant said. Pei Yuan would earn his own money to buy his sister back, but the price wouldn't be cheap. These two people existed because of Poppy. Without Poppy, they wouldn't have been able to rise. To put it bluntly, they had hitched a ride on the main character and reached the peak of their lives. After dealing with the matter, Ning Shu bowed to Lady Wang and was about to leave the main courtyard. Lady Wang said indifferently, "You can't have no one to serve you. If you have a suitable candidate, you can promote one to be your personal maidservant. You don't need to tell me." Ning Shu saw that Lady Wang clearly didn't want to be close to him, so he thanked her and left. Chapter 928. Ning Shu returned to the orchid garden and saw the servant Ji Tao waiting for him at the door. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows and walked over, asking, "Why are you here?" Ji Tao bowed, "This servant is Mrs.'s personal servant. I must be by Mrs.'s side to take care of Mississippi." This servant girl suddenly appeared. Ning Shu rolled his eyes and curled his lips. What did she do before? Ji Tao saw that Ning Shu did not speak and had a strange expression. She quickly said, "Because this servant's hand was broken, I have been recuperating. Now that my hand is almost healed, I came to serve Mississippi. Oh, it takes 100 days to recover from a bone injury." "You should go back and recuperate," Ning Shu said calmly. He did not say anything about recuperating. Ji Tao knelt down, "Miss, this servant will serve Miss well in the future. Please give this servant another chance." Ning Shu said, "Do what you should do well. I don't expect you to be loyal. These servant girls were just workers. It was normal for people to want to climb higher. Yes, this servant will remember." Ji Tao immediately cried tears of joy. Ning Shu said again, "Now go and sweep the courtyard. Be a cleaning servant first." A personal servant girl had to be chosen carefully. How could it be decided so casually? A personal servant girl knew her own situation very well. She knew it better than her parents. But she was said to be the closest person. Ning Shu still planned to test Ji Tao. After all, Ji Tao had been serving Feng Qingqian. He did not know how Feng Qingqian would deal with this servant girl when she came back. When Ji Tao heard that Ning Shu demoted her to be a servant girl, her face fell. In the end, Ning Shu bowed, "This servant understands." Ning Shu nodded and waved his hand to let Ji Tao go out. Then, he took off his shoes and sat cross-legged on the bed to cultivate. Feng Qingqian's body had problems after the battle between Ning Shu and Poppy. Especially Poppy's body had a thick yin energy. The damage to the body was not ordinary. Ning Shu could only cultivate and slowly repair this body. Otherwise, Feng Qingqian would die early when she came back. Ning Shu stayed in the Prince Manor and did not step out. However, a major incident had happened in the capital. Prince Xian had attempted to assassinate the emperor. Right now, he was being arrested by the entire city, and the imperial guards were searching through each and every house. This made the atmosphere in the capital quite tense. It was not that Prince Xian had personally assassinated the emperor. Instead, the emperor would occasionally pull the vassals who came to the capital to present their birthday gifts into the palace for a chat, singing, dancing, drinking wine, and looking at beautiful women. The enchanting dancers suddenly pulled out their shiny swords and slashed at the stunned vassals. 2 of the vassals were stabbed in their vital points and died, while several others were injured. The dancers brandished their swords and pierced toward the emperor. Some of the other dancers even shouted loudly toward Prince Xian, "Master, retreat first. Your subordinates swear to protect you with their lives." They blabbered on and on about how they were extremely loyal even in the face of death. Then, the tokens on their bodies unintentionally fell out. On the tokens, there was the word, Prince Xian written in capital letters. Prince Xian's countenance turned grim. A few dancers surrounded him and dragged him away in the name of protecting him. When Prince Xian turned and saw the emperor who had been stabbed in the thigh, he was infuriated. So what if he had been stabbed in the thigh? If he had been so capable, he would have stabbed in the heart. With such a crooked aim, it was just to pin the crime of regicide on him. Relying on his powerful physical, light, strength, Prince Xian killed the dancers who were pestering him and escaped from the palace. The emperor's thigh was wrapped in bandages. He was infuriated and swore to capture Prince Xian. The entire city was on high alert and the city gates were closed. Even Feng Chang had been given orders to find the renegade. Feng Chang could only leave early and return late to look for the culprit. Ning Shu felt a little speechless. The emperor's actions were just short of saying, "I'm going to frame you, and the one I'm going to frame is you." Even the vassals who were with him were unlucky. The emperor probably wanted to deal with these vassals who he did not like and had ceded their territories. Ah, how sinister. However, this had nothing to do with Ning Shu. Whenever he had nothing to do, he would guide his chi force to every corner of his body, allowing it to slowly heal his body. However, Feng Chang and the others did not manage to capture Prince Xian. An old man rescued Prince Xian and brought him out of the city, allowing Prince Xian to successfully meet up with his people. Feng Chang and the others were punished by the emperor for failing to capture Prince Xian. Feng Chang was fined half a year's salary. Feng Chang was not in a good mood, causing the Feng clan's servants to be very careful. It was as if they were treading on thin ice, not daring to get on his bad side. Ning Shu looked at Feng Chang's worried expression and consoled him, "Father, it's just half a year's salary." Which official's family did not have a shop? How could a small amount of salary be enough to support a large family? Feng Chang threw a glance at Ning Shu. That's a woman's view. Who says that I'm feeling heartache over the salary? It's just that Prince Xian has escaped this time around and we can't take this lying down. There'll be more trouble in the future. You're clearly feeling heartache over the salary as well. Ning Shu sighed. Now that there were many countries, the world would be divided after being united for a long time and united for a long time. However, the process of unification would be a little difficult. Now that Poppy had been absorbed by the Soul Pearl, there were no firearms that surpassed the current era. It would be a little difficult to unify so many countries just by relying on a spear and a staff. Without great talent and strategy, it would be a little difficult. In any case, war was accompanied by pain and destruction. After destruction, new life would be born. The ones who suffered would be the powerless commoners. Feng Chang did not know if Feng Qingqian would be able to see the unification in her lifetime. If there was a war, it would affect the Feng clan's interests. If something were to happen to Feng Chang, the Feng clan might decline. This was why Feng Chang was so worried. To be honest, Feng Chang should be thinking about the next successor of the Feng clan and nurturing the next successor. However, Ning Shu only thought about these things. After all, he was not considered a member of the Feng clan. Moreover, he was a woman. If he were to interfere in such matters, Feng Chang would probably open his eyes wide and glare at him. Ning Shu was more concerned about one thing now, and that was when the princess mother of this body would appear. If the princess mother appeared, the life of the original owner should be better. Could it be that the princess mother would not appear after the female lead, Poppy, died? He felt that this mother was Poppy's mother, not Feng Qingqian's mother. Ning Shu was too lazy to worry about the outside world. He cultivated in the orchid garden every day. If he had nothing to do, he would write medical books and unique martial arts. If someone used what he wrote in the future, it might even generate the power of faith. When the original owner came back, he could learn on his own. It was important to have a skill, especially when chaos was about to begin. It was better to rely on oneself than on others. Ning Shu waited for the original owner's princess mother. In the end, he waited for the princess mother's voice. Mission completed. Do you want to leave the mission world? Ning Shu nodded. Leave. Ning Shu's head was dizzy for a moment. He returned to the system space. Since he could leave the mission world, it meant that the mission this time was completed. However, Ning Shu was more regretful that he did not see Feng Qingqian's mother. He deeply suspected that this girl was really dead. If she was Poppy, then she was alive. Only Poppy could trigger this character. Chapter 929. The princess mother had never appeared before. Now that Poppy had transmigrated into this world, Emma had appeared with the image of a compassionate mother who was filled with guilt. She loved and spoiled Poppy so much. It made up for his lonely and cold heart as an assassin, and he had the care of his family. All the hardships that Feng Qingqian had suffered in the past had been compensated to Poppy. Ning Shu couldn't help but shed tears of sympathy for Feng Qing. Ning Shu opened his attribute panel to see how many points he had earned this time. Serial number, 2333. Name, Ning Shu, Intermediate Mission Taker, Age, 27 points, 150,000/30000000. Soul Value, 320 HP, 91 Wisdom, 274 Charm, 10 Luck, 119 Spiritual Power, 180 Faith, 515 Combat Power, 192 Aptitude, 89 Merit, 13045-100 Skills, 5th Ring Shooting Technique, Trash Fighting Technique, Beginner Level Peerless Martial Arts, Beginner Level Poison Technique, Beginner Level Business Management Knowledge, Beginner Level Code Programming, Beginner Level Lawyer Skills, Master Ghost Catching Skills. Honorary Titles, Goddess of War, Selfless Ancestor Items, Calm Halo, Faith Halo, Amulet 5, Upgraded Amulet 2. Halo, Mother of the World, Queen's Blessing, Sister Model Worker, Chen Shi's Blessing, Leader Halo, Grass Blessing, Best Friend for a Lifetime, Miao Miao Miao's Blessing, Savior, Zhu Sunyang's Blessing, Founding Female General, Chen Ermiai's Blessing. Feng Qingqian's wish was to take back her body. Quest completion rate, 100%. Obtained 3 million points, 40 attribute points, 2,000 faith points, minus 100 merit points. This time, the mission points were relatively low. Although he had only snatched the body, he had lost 100 merit points. The gains do not make up for the losses, sigh. Sometimes, there would be no merit at all in several worlds. This world used up 100 points in one go. His heart ached so much that his whole body was trembling. It's not a waste for you to have these merits. 2333 said, it's good to have merit on you. The rules of the world will treat you better. After all, people with merit are all good people. This explanation was more acceptable. She was a kind person. Heavy fog, Ning Shu distributed the 40 attribute points. Serial number, 2333 name, Ning Shu, intermediate mission taker, age, 27 points, 150,000/3,000,000 soul value, 320 HP, 91 wisdom, 27410 charm, 10 luck, 11910 spiritual power, 18010 faith, 3515200 combat value, 19210 aptitude, 89 merit, 13045-100 skills, 5th ring shooting technique, trash fighting technique, beginner level peerless martial arts, beginner level poison technique, beginner level business management knowledge, beginner level code programming, beginner level lawyer skills, master ghost catching. Skills. Honorary titles, Goddess of War, Selfless Ancestor items, Calm Halo, Faith Halo, Amulet 5, Upgraded Amulet 2. Halo, Mother of the World, Queen's Blessing, Sister Model Worker, Chen Shi's Blessing, Leader Halo, Grass Blessing, Best Friend for a Lifetime, Miao Miao Miao's Blessing, Savior, Zhu Sun Yang's Blessing, Founding Female General, Chen Ermiai's Blessing. Ning Shu said, let's see how Feng Qingqian went back. To be honest, with Feng Qingqian's personality, if she didn't try to make some changes, her life would still be the same as before. Whether she lived a good life or not depended on herself. A screen appeared in front of Ning Shu. Not long after Ning Shu left, Feng Qingqian's dead mother came back to life. Feng Qingqian followed her mother back to the Red Flame Kingdom. However, Feng Qingqian's attitude towards her parents was rather cold. This had always been a thorn in Feng Qingqian's heart. When she had nothing to do, she would study the things that Ning Shu left behind. In addition, everyone in the Red Flame Kingdom was proficient in poisons. Feng Qingqian had an old man as her master and studied poisons every day. Poison and medicine were closely related. Feng Qingqian's personality was quiet and dull. She was very patient and learned things quite quickly. However, Feng Qingqian's personality was still the same. She was quiet and didn't have much of a presence. A leopard can change its spots but not its nature. A person's personality was already like that, it couldn't be changed anymore. It was fine as long as she had the ability to protect herself. Poppy looked down on Feng Qingqian because she didn't have any abilities. She was quiet and dull and was a soft bun. If a person didn't have any abilities, they would be full of flaws. The current Feng Qingqian could save people and kill people. She was quiet and dull and steady. Ning Shu turned off the screen and sat cross-legged on the sofa to absorb the pure soul energy in the system space. When the cultivation was over, Ning Shu touched his own soul. He felt that his soul was getting stronger and stronger. In the past, it had felt like soft cotton to the touch, but now it felt like a bouncy jelly. The texture was much denser. However, it still wasn't that strong. It was like a jelly that could be pierced by something sharp. When the soul was really strong, it would be invulnerable and could even regain a physical body. Ning Shu was a little curious. Was the body of the school doctor pure soul or had he regained a physical body? If he was a physical body, wouldn't it be dirty to wear the same clothes every day? Wasn't he a neat freak? Ning Shu stopped his train of thought that was running further and further away. He asked 2333, is it better to stay in a soul state or to regain a physical body? The physical body is too restrictive. Mission enforcers are all souls. 2333 said, it's just a body. That seemed to make a lot of sense. Then here came the question. How was he supposed to have sex in a soul state? Spiritual sex. Mission enforcers also have couples, right? Then how do they have sex? No, how do they communicate? Ning Shu asked. Ha! 2333's voice was full of disdain. Mission enforcers are above the vulgar pleasure of sex. Ning Shu was a little speechless. Why was he discussing this with 2333? However, he was still curious. Is there any other elegant way to communicate? Don't tell me there's nothing else other than sex. 2333 grumbled. The love I see is all about sex. Ning Shu retorted. The ultimate goal of men and women was reproduction. Love, heart-wrenching, sweet talk, romantic pursuit, they were all men selling their mating ability. The ultimate goal was reproduction. In order to reproduce smoothly and create more offspring, there was also the pleasure of mating. 2333, let's change the topic. 2333 said. Ning Shu nodded. Okay. But you haven't told me about the elegant way to communicate. Actually, mission enforcers in a couple can enter the same mission world and enjoy the normal life of a man and a woman. 2333 said. Ha! Ning Shu's voice was full of disdain. This is the elegant way to communicate. Chapter 930. Ning Shu was too lazy to argue with 2333 anymore. He took out the secret book of the ultimate martial arts. The book was getting heavier and heavier, and it felt heavy in his hand. Ning Shu flipped through the book page by page. In the future, he would leave behind a peerless martial art in every world. Maybe someone would cultivate it. If they cultivated Qi Jin, they would contribute a portion of faith power to the peerless martial art. Ning Shu held the fantasy of the ultimate martial arts. If it could really form a world, what kind of world would it be? Would it be a low-level, mid-level, high-level, or even a super realm? Every realm has its own evolution, and its laws are constantly perfected. When it comes out, it will be a super realm. Why don't you go to heaven? I want to immediately become a super AI. 2333 said. Ning Shu curled his lips and put the book on the shelf. It was not easy to form a realm. It needed the power of the origin. What she needed was a realm where people could live, not a space that could only store things. If she had a realm, it would contribute a lot of faith to her. Moreover, the realm was closely related to her. Only by forming a world could she truly escape the shackles of the mission enforcers. Erasing the mission enforcers was equivalent to erasing all life in a realm. Destroying a realm was a great sin. But when the time came, there would definitely be a new punishment. Until now, Ning Shu had not even seen the 5 types of world origin, let alone forming a world. As for how to obtain the power of the world origin, Ning Shu was even more confused. Should he go to the virtual space to see if there was anything to exchange? It would be even better if he could exchange for it. Ning Shu stood at the entrance of the passage and said to 2333, let's go to the virtual space. In the blink of an eye, Ning Shu was standing on the quaint green flagstone street. Ning Shu headed straight for the trading hall in the virtual space. In addition to the official trading hall, there was also the black market. With so many mission enforcers gathered together, it was also a different form of competition. Another form of a world where the strong were respected. Ning Shu first went to the trading hall and looked at the huge display screen hanging on the wall. There were all sorts of quests and items being traded. There were people setting up stalls in the trading hall. Ning Shu looked at the stalls one by one and saw all kinds of strange things. Ning Shu took a fancy to a pot of flowers. The flower was white and only the size of a thumb, but it was very delicate. The smell was quite elegant, and it smelled a bit like the agarwood that Ning Shu smelled in the consultation room. It calmed one's mind and soothed one's soul. When he asked about the price, he found out that it cost 20,000 points and 2 merit points. Goodbye, I'm not buying anymore. Damn, you can go to heaven with just a pot of flowers. It's really convincing. Ning Shu had only lost 100 merit points in the previous mission. He didn't have that many merit points to spend on a pot of flowers. These merits and faith power were reserved for the promotion of super mission enforcers, and he had no idea how to earn them. Ning Shu only had 10,000 merit points because of that plane. She had saved the world, but it was only 10,000. Ning Shu really wanted to see if destroying a world would deduct all her merit points. Her character would probably be negative and she would be burdened with negative karma. Just thinking about it made him scared. Boss, give me this flower. Ning Shu was still complaining that the flower was too expensive when he heard a female voice. Ning Shu turned and saw the smiling Mei Ziqing. Mei Ziqing took the flower and handed it to Ning Shu. For you. Thank you, but no need. This is too expensive. Ning Shu asked, don't you need to earn merit points? Mei Ziqing was working hard to earn merit points to be promoted to a super mission enforcer. Spending 2 merit points to buy a pot of flowers was a waste. Just like in the previous world, she didn't get any merit points and instead lost 100 merit points. Ning Shu was like a resentful woman, complaining about her loss of merit points. I went to participate in another mission that's about to shatter. The reward is okay. I can be promoted after one more mission. 2 merit points won't be a problem. Mei Ziqing stuffed the pot of flowers into Ning Shu's hands. For you. I don't think it's a good idea to accept a reward for nothing. Ning Shu said, how about I pay for whatever you like? She and Mei Ziqing were just acquaintances. It wasn't appropriate for her to accept something so expensive. She should return the favor. Mei Ziqing glanced around and finally settled on a string of bells on the stall. This bell required 3 points of faith power. Ning Shu paid for it generously. She could earn points of faith power every time, but merit points weren't available in every world. Mei Ziqing was about to put it down when she heard that it cost faith power. But seeing Ning Shu pay for it, she said in surprise, I remember that you're only an intermediate mission enforcer. How can you pay with faith power? When I'm doing missions, I sometimes get a little faith power, Ning Shu said. Mei Ziqing raised her eyebrows. Her expression was a little strange, but she didn't say anything. She hung the bells on her waist. As she moved, the bells let out an unusually pleasant sound, refreshing one's mind. Ning Shu carried the pot of flowers and left the trading hall with Mei Ziqing. Mei Ziqing asked Ning Shu, are you here to trade something? I want to ask about the world's origin, Ning Shu said. Mei Ziqing shook her head. This thing is too precious. Not many people in the virtual space have it. Only the experts above have it. Even super mission enforcers don't have it. Ning Shu asked. Ning Shu thought about it in his mind, wondering if he had anything that could be exchanged for the world's origin. After thinking about it, he didn't have anything valuable on him. Did the soul pearl count? However, Ning Shu didn't want to exchange the soul pearl. The soul pearl had contributed greatly in 2 worlds. He couldn't bear to part with it. Are super mission enforcers very powerful in your heart? Mei Ziqing asked. Ning Shu nodded. Yes, they are quite powerful. Sometimes, numbers don't necessarily represent ability. Levels don't necessarily represent ability, Mei Ziqing said. But when you reach the top, you can enjoy some benefits. Mei Ziqing sighed. Super mission enforcers can't control their own fate. The world is so dangerous. Super mission enforcers can also disappear completely. I'll take it one step at a time. Ning Shu didn't really care. He had been to so many worlds, seen so many worlds, and experienced so many lives. Originally, he should have died. But to have such an opportunity, he had profited. If he could live, he would do his best. If he really disappeared, damn, how could she disappear? Ning Shu felt that Mei Ziqing knew a lot and invited her to a restaurant for a meal. However, once he entered the restaurant, Ning Shu saw a familiar face. Pan Chen, a rock spirit. At this moment, Pan Chen was staring at the mission enforcers walking in and out of the restaurant. His delicate face was full of desire. Obviously, he coveted the mission enforcers' souls. Chapter 931. Pan Chen was a rock. Wasn't he taken away by Uncle? Why was he here? Those green eyes looked as if they wanted to absorb all the souls in the room. He was probably afraid of something and could only look at the mission enforcers while drooling. Ning Shu and Mei Ziqing looked at each other and decided to leave the restaurant quietly. Two beauties. Pan Chen saw Ning Shu and Mei Ziqing. His eyes lit up and he rushed to them. I'm eating. I don't have any points. Can you treat me to a meal? Pan Chen looked a little shy. I want to taste what you're eating. Pan Chen was shy every time he saw him. Killing people and sucking their souls was really annoying. Moreover, this guy didn't have any karma. Even if he destroyed a plane, it wouldn't matter. Why was he so heaven-defying? Pan Chen sat with Ning Shu and Mei Ziqing shamelessly. He took the menu and ordered a table of dishes. Then, his eyes moved back and forth between Ning Shu and Mei Ziqing. He looked at them as if they were food. Ning Shu asked, "Why are you here? Was it really good to leave such a person in the virtual space? It was like a wolf in a sheep pen. I'm just walking around." Pan Chen smiled. Pan Chen looked very delicate. He looked like a clean and gentle college student. He was very harmless. He would even blush if they talked too much. But this was just a facade. Pan Chen's dishes were all served. He picked up his chopsticks and took a bite. It tastes good. You guys eat too. Ning Shu picked up his chopsticks and started eating. He was paying for it. He couldn't not eat. Ning Shu ignored Pan Chen and asked, "Do you know who has the world's origin?" Mei Ziqing shook her head. Even if they had it, they wouldn't advertise it. Is it very rare? That was true. Pan Chen ate and looked at Ning Shu and Mei Ziqing. He asked, "What are you talking about?" "Nothing," Ning Shu said. Pan Chen stretched out his clean and slender hand and placed it on Ning Shu's shoulder. He even pressed down on Ning Shu's shoulder as if he was checking the texture of Ning Shu's soul. Ning Shu moved his shoulder and avoided Pan Chen's hand. "Are you sure you want to do this?" If he wanted to absorb soul energy, he would have to see if he could run away. "Your soul is very good," Pan Chen praised Ning Shu politely as if he was praising the taste of the foie gras. Ning Shu's face twitched. Ning Shu was thinking about his chances of winning against this guy. The probability of winning was so low that it was negligible. "Why are you here?" Mei Ziqing asked Pan Chen. Pan Chen smiled shyly. "There are so many souls here." Mei Ziqing. "Get over here." An indifferent voice rang out. When Pan Chen heard this voice, his face fell. He turned to look at the uncle in a black windbreaker at the door. Pan Chen put down his chopsticks and walked towards the uncle dispiritedly. Pan Chen was very uncomfortable. He didn't want to pay attention to the uncle, but he was wary of the uncle's strength. It was very, very difficult for him to gain sentience. Ning Shu looked at the two of them and silently imagined a love story between a perverted beast and a shy woman. The uncle glanced at Ning Shu and Mei Ziqing and left with Pan Chen. When he left, Pan Chen was still looking around, unable to move his eyes away from the mission enforcers. Once Pan Chen left, Mei Ziqing heaved a sigh of relief and said, this thing can only be controlled by the first-generation mission enforcers. Wherever he goes, it's a disaster. Ning Shu pursed his lips. In the end, he wasn't strong enough. If he was strong enough, he could just throw the stone around and play with it. What was there to worry about? Ning Shu chatted with Mei Ziqing for a while. He didn't ask about the world's origin, but he was sure that the transaction hall didn't have it. The black market might have it, but it was very likely that it would be eaten by the black market. Its safety couldn't be guaranteed. With his current strength, he still wasn't strong enough to protect it. Anyway, this path was very long. He could only pay attention to the world's origin in the mission world. Moreover, there were 5 types of world's origin. It was very difficult to get one. No wonder it was so difficult to build a world. After dinner, Ning Shu and Mei Ziqing parted ways. Ning Shu prepared to go to the black market. I suggest you don't go now. Wait until you're stronger. At the very least, wait until you're a high-level mission enforcer. Not everyone can enter the black market. The minimum requirement is a high-level mission enforcer, 2333 said. Ning Shu was speechless. Discrimination. Ning Shu could only say helplessly, then I won't go shopping. Let's go back to the system space. Ning Shu's head was a little dizzy. When he returned to the system space, Ning Shu put the flowers Mei Ziqing gave him on the coffee table. The entire system space was filled with an elegant scent, which made people feel extremely comfortable just by smelling it. Ning Shu took out a book from the bookshelf and slowly read it. When he was done, he put the book back on the shelf and sat up straight. He said to 2333, let's see the next mission enforcer. 2333 coughed and said, do you want to be a pampered concubine system? The previous world was ancient. I don't want to do ancient missions, Ning Shu said tiredly. Let's talk about it next time. 2333 was a little disappointed. Okay. Ning Shu sat on the sofa and waited for the mission enforcer. A woman gradually appeared in the space. Her facial features were decent and pleasing to the eye. She had the looks of an average person. This woman's face was pale and her body was slightly swollen. She looked very young. Ning Shu estimated that she was around 25 years old. Her eyes were dull and dull. Her hands were in front of her, like she was hugging a baby. However, there was nothing in front of her. Ning Shu cleared his throat and said, hello. However, the woman didn't react. Ning Shu couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Hello. The woman looked at Ning Shu, but she didn't say anything. This was the first time Ning Shu had met a mission enforcer like this. In the past, he had met people who were filled with hatred, sadness, and regret. However, he had never met someone who was as disheartened as this woman. Her whole body was lifeless. He didn't know what she had experienced. Ning Shu asked, are you the one who wants to counterattack? It doesn't matter. Why was I brought to this place after I died? Zhang Ning said. From the beginning to the end, her arms didn't move. She was still hugging a baby. What counterattack? I have nothing to counterattack. What can I change? Zhang Ning said with a frown. Ning Shu took a deep breath and decided to read the story of this world first. The person in front of him was called Zhang Ning. She was an ordinary woman without any amazing talent. She was just an ordinary woman. However, she was a little older than Ning Shu thought. She was 28 years old. She met her husband, N Jinwei, through a blind date. N Jinwei was an employee of a state-owned enterprise. He also had a house. In the eyes of outsiders, he was quite well off. Zhang Ning was old. Her parents were very optimistic about N Jinwei. They took a 100,000 yuan betrothal gift and married Zhang Ning to N Jinwei. Chapter 932. They got together without any emotional foundation. Zhang Ning was a full-time housewife at home. A year later, she gave birth to a daughter, Nan. Zhang Ning suffered from severe postpartum depression after childbirth. In addition, she gave birth to a daughter, which made her mother-in-law unhappy, and the family ignored the child. Zhang Ning, a new mother, was under great psychological pressure to take care of her child. She was physically tired and emotionally volatile. Sometimes she was hysterical for no reason, and sometimes she cried silently. And Jinwei was very impatient. "I've raised you. What else do you want? Do you know how hard I work?" Zhang Ning knew that she was ill, but her mother-in-law said that she was really precious. Which daughter-in-law was like her? She gave her good food and clothes, but she still had depression. It was strange. Her mother-in-law loved to gossip. Her father-in-law never took care of things. Her husband was indifferent. The whole family was full of desperate cold violence. She was mentally abused and tortured. When Nan was half a year old, Zhang Ning could not escape the mental cancer of depression in such an environment. She was in pain and despair. Holding her infant daughter, she climbed to the top floor of the community. Zhang Ning wanted to leave the world with her child. Her child would also experience what she had experienced. Postpartum depression brought her serious sleep disorders. She could not sleep all night. She never had a good sleep. Zhang Ning was tired and anxious. She could no longer bear it. Nothing could support her to live. Her spirit had been completely destroyed. Standing on the edge of the balcony, Zhang Ning saw the family scolding her as if she had done something heinous. Her husband's face was cold and gloomy. Zhang Ning jumped down resolutely with the child in her arms. Ning Shu received the plot. He opened his mouth but could not say a word. Zhang Ning came to this point because no one supported her, no one understood her, and she was isolated and desperate. The most fundamental thing was that the family did not care about her daughter-in-law at all. Zhang Ning felt inferior and blamed herself. She had repeated suicidal thoughts and attempts. Ning Shu glanced at Zhang Ning, who was quiet and silent, and asked, "What's your wish?" Zhang Ning turned her head and asked, "What can you do? What do you think of the result?" There was always a wish for her to fulfill. Zhang Ning's face showed a strange look. "What do you know? Do you understand my pain? And my Nan? Ning Shu sighed, "So you don't want to counterattack? Okay, I'll give you all of my soul power." Zhang Ning said with a smile. "Then what is your wish?" Ning Shu asked. "What do you think I need?" Ning Shu frowned. Zhang Ning didn't care about anything now. "To make your daughter happy." Ning Shu probed. "What kind of happiness can a woman have? She can only marry and have children. She is ignored and trampled on by others." Zhang Ning was expressionless. Ning Shu felt somewhat helpless. Even though society had developed to this day, women were still an existence that was looked down upon. How many husbands truly respect their wives? Men were really disgusting. "Then what do you want?" Ning Shu asked. She didn't really want to take this mission. She was just a bystander, and her heart felt particularly heavy. It was so heavy that Ning Shu felt a shadow in his heart. This was the current state of women's existence. You are a full-time wife. You work 24 hours a day. You are a mother. You are a wife. You are a daughter. You are a daughter-in-law. You are an alarm clock. You are a chef. You are a driver. You are a maid. You are a teacher. You are a waiter. You are a nanny. You are a nurse. You are a handyman. You are a guard. You are a consultant. You don't have a week off. You don't have sick days. You don't have annual leave. You work day and night. You have to follow orders, but the reward is, what do you do all day? If you have a job, then you still have to do the work above. Ning Shu, do you want to counterattack? Ning Shu asked, chanting the clear heart mantra in his heart. This kind of life was torturous. A failed marriage was enough to make people lose the confidence and courage to walk into the siege again. To be honest, Ning Shu had an uncontrollable anger in his heart. Okay, counterattack. Chen Ning said. Her arms were bent as if she was holding a baby. Then, what is your wish? Without a wish, how could she counterattack? She had to have a goal. Without a goal, how could she counterattack? Who knew what she wanted in her heart? I just want to be free. If your counterattack can help me end this pain, then counterattack. Chen Ning didn't care about anything. She just wanted to be free from her current soul state. She was a soul, but her consciousness was still there. The pain that was carved into her soul, if she could choose, Chen Ning's soul would be destroyed. Mental cancer was more destructive than physical cancer. You are sick. You are mentally ill. 2333's voice sounded in Ning Shu's mind. Ning Shu, we reject this mission. Why? Ning Shu glanced at Chen Ning and asked in surprise. Someone has already counterattacked for her, but they all failed. 2333 said. Ning Shu was even more surprised. This mission is so difficult. The most torturous things in the world are trivial things. Some quest takers killed everyone in the Yin family, and some even killed Chen Ning's family. Ning Shu thought, motherfucker, how difficult was this mission? A marriage failed several quest takers. Ning Shu let out a long sigh. I've decided to give it a try. What kind of world have I not seen? I don't know how this mission was assigned to us. You have to think carefully. If you fail, you will lose a talisman. Talismans are merit points. 2333 dragged his voice. Why don't we do the beloved concubine system's mission and destroy the system to complete my data? No, I have to try. Ning Shu said. How could he know if he could do it without trying? Since when was the mission easy? The client didn't sacrifice their soul for the quest taker to travel the world. Okay then, as you wish. 2333 didn't say anything else. Are you sure you want to sacrifice all your soul power to counterattack? Ning Shu looked at Chen Ning and asked again, once this mission is successful, it can't be changed. I think you need to think about it. Chapter 933. The price of using all of her soul power was a bit high. She had her soul origin, but without soul power, she would not have the advantage of reincarnation. Very few people would give up all of their soul power. Ning Shu felt that Chen Ning did not know the importance of soul power, or maybe she did not care at all. However, Ning Shu still felt the need to remind her. Chen Ning turned around and looked at Ning Shu. Her eyes were dim and empty. Thank you. I will give you 3/4 of my soul. Are you sure? Ning Shu asked. Chen Ning nodded. Then what is your wish? Ning Shu asked. I don't have any wish. Chen Ning said as her body gradually disappeared from the system space. Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu took a deep breath and opened the exchange store. He wanted to exchange for fasting pills, but he found that the exchange button was grayed out. He could not click on it at all. Ning Shu asked, why can't I exchange for these ordinary things? 2333 said, this is an extremely peaceful world. There is no shortage of food, clothing, or medicine. The AI system is locked. You cannot exchange for these things. Ning Shu was speechless. It was a peaceful world, but Ning Shu had a bad feeling in his heart. Ning Shu closed the exchange store and calmed himself down. He said to 2333, enter the system space. Okay. 2333 replied. Ning Shu felt dizzy for a moment. She felt as if she had squeezed into a body. When she had completely merged with the body, she heard the cries of a child rising and falling. He also smelled the smell of disinfectant. He should be in a hospital. Ning Shu felt pain in his abdomen. It was very painful. When he moved, there was a rush of heat. His whole body was covered in sticky sweat. Ning Shu opened his eyes and saw a child in the crib next to the bed. The child's face was red. This should be the original owner's child who only lived for half a year. Ning Shu wanted to move, but the pain in his abdomen was unbearable. Was it a C-section? Ning Shu was speechless. So this was when the original owner gave birth? My dear mother, I still have to go through confinement. Ning Shu felt extremely uncomfortable and weak. You're awake. Grandma Chen Ning came back with water. Ning Shu said coldly. He put the kettle on the bed and looked at the baby in the crib. Chen Ning's mother-in-law looked young with curly hair like instant noodles. However, she didn't have a pleasant expression when facing her daughter-in-law who had just given birth. The mother-in-law picked up the child from the crib and muttered, "Why is it a little girl?" Then, she did something that made Ning Shu almost jump up. She lifted the child by one of his legs and shook him slightly. Make your move, she meant that the next child would be a boy. The child had just been born not long ago, so his entire body was soft. Even his neck had not yet grown hard, and he was incomparably fragile. Just like that, he was grabbed by the ankle and fell down. His little face was red from suffocation, and he howled loudly. Ning Shu was so angry that the incision on his abdomen was split open. He struggled to get up, but the pain made Ning Shu's whole body tremble. The newborn child's digestive ability was poor and he would vomit milk. Now that the child was shaken twice, the milk powder and milk in the stomach all flowed out, choking his nose and flowing all over his face. Only then did Grandma Chen Ning pick up the child. Ning Shu struggled to get up and took the child. He rolled up the corner of his hospital gown and wiped away the vomit. Some of it flowed into his nose. The child was coughing so hard that his face was blue and purple. Oh, what's wrong with her? Grandma Chen Ning asked beside him. Ning Shu's heart was suddenly filled with uncontrollable anger. Who was this person? Ning Shu bent down, sucked the child's nose, and gently sucked out the filth that flowed into the child's nose. If it went into the child's throat, it would choke him to death. Ning Shu turned the child over, gently patted the child's back, and then pressed the beeper on the bedside. After a while, the nurse and the doctor came. Ning Shu told them about the child's situation. The doctor scolded Grandma Chen Ning, which made Grandma Chen Ning's face turn pale. This is my granddaughter. How could someone treat her granddaughter like this? Even if Ning Shu had the support of the calm halo, his heart was burning with anger. The doctor took the child for a checkup, and Ning Shu's hospital gown was stained with blood. The incision was split, and it needed to be stitched again. Ning Shu's abdomen was in so much pain that he was sweating profusely. It was as if someone was forcibly pulling open his wound. It was really painful. Ning Shu was pushed into the operating room. Perhaps his soul was stronger than before. Even with anesthesia, Ning Shu could feel the needle and thread piercing through his flesh. It was a dull and painful feeling. Ning Shu had an inexplicable feeling of wanting to cry. It was this body that was wailing tiredly. After the sewing operation, Ning Shu woke up and said directly to the nurse, "Give me a pain stick." Not even a pain stick. Did he want to die from the pain? The mother-in-law next to the bed couldn't help but mutter, "You gave birth to a little girl, and you still have so many problems." The blue veins on Ning Shu's forehead jumped, and he ignored her. The mother-in-law said again, "Save as much as you can. Jin Wei doesn't earn money easily. Now that he has a girl, he will have a second child in the future. He had just given birth, and now he was going to have a second child. Only when he was in it did Ning Shu truly feel the pain. It made him unable to rest during his confinement, and he poked where it hurt. He was physically and mentally exhausted after giving birth to a child, but he was treated like this, and he was even said to have given birth to a money-losing thing. He belittled and attacked people. Women not only had to face the contempt and oppression of men, but they also had to face the humiliation of being a woman. They had to humiliate women to please men. The 3 obedience and 4 virtues were all made up by women themselves. They degraded women to the ground to please men. Only in this way could you get the love of men. You had to take care of men in every possible way, and you had to treat men as if they were the sky. Fighting with the same sex, fighting to the death, and being incomparably tolerant of men. Ning Shu took a deep breath. "Give me a pain stick." The mother-in-law's expression was very bad, and she kept muttering. Ning Shu fell asleep tiredly. This body was really too tired. It was normal to suffer from postpartum depression. Depression, emotional violence, and mental dismemberment. Because of pregnancy and childbirth, the body's hormones changed, and endocrine disorders caused emotional changes. They lost interest in everything, cried bitterly, had low self-esteem, and were so tired that even the brain's reaction was slow, and it was difficult to think. That was why there was the saying that pregnancy made one stupid for 3 years. At noon, An Jinwei came to the hospital to see Ning Shu after work. An Jinwei was wearing glasses, thin and tall, but there was no expression on his face. An Jinwei was not very handsome. At most, he was just average, and he did not look like a burly man. When he walked over and sat on the edge of the bed, Ning Shu felt a chill run down her spine. This was a selfish person. Marrying Chen Ning was just a casual feeling of marrying someone, and it didn't matter who he married. Chapter 934. This man didn't care about Chen Ning at all. His wife had given birth, but he was still working. If she questioned him now, she was afraid that this man would say, "How can I support you if I don't work?" Anyway, he acted as if having a job was so great and looked down on her. If you can't support your family, why did you marry a wife and have children? The An family just needed a daughter-in-law to carry on the family line. They didn't treat Chen Ning as an equal, especially since Chen Ning didn't do anything at home and relied on An Jinwei to support her. An Jinwei saw that Ning Shu was staring at him, and his eyes were a little sharp. He asked uncomfortably, "Does it still hurt? What's the pain?" "There's a pain stick." An Jinwei's mother immediately said, "You don't know how to be thrifty at home." An Jinwei pursed his lips and didn't say anything. He looked at the baby in the crib and touched the baby's face with his fingers. There was a little joy on his face. An Jinwei stayed in the ward for a while. He raised his wrist to look at his watch and said that he was going to work. He also told Ning Shu to have a good rest. Cold man and cold in-laws. This family was indifferent and selfish. No, this indifference was only directed at Chen Ning, the daughter-in-law. Chen Ning's existence was to give birth, raise, and take care of the baby. She also had to solve An Jinwei's physical needs. Other than that, she didn't have her own life and didn't need any independent life. In this marriage that outsiders thought was suitable, only Chen Ning could understand the pain in it. Ning Shu silently chanted the mind-clearing mantra in his heart. He calmed down a little and then began to cultivate the ultimate martial arts. However, the spirit energy in modern times was scarce, and in a hospital where patients gathered, the spirit energy was even less. Ning Shu cultivated for a whole night and only managed to cultivate a little bit of Qi Jin. This was with the help of the martial arts value and the ultimate martial arts. There was so little spirit energy. Ning Shu used all his Qi Jin to repair the wound in his abdomen. It was really painful. To go to the toilet, he had to get up slowly. He didn't dare to use his abdomen at all. Ning Shu didn't expect that he would be so weak one day. This body had suffered from postpartum depression, tinnitus, loss of appetite, and little milk, but Jinwei's mother still insisted that Ning Shu breastfeed her. She said that the milk powder was a few hundred yuan a can and that the milk was not enough for the children to eat, so she refused to feed them milk powder. Ning Shu just wanted to curse, but he didn't have any money in his hands. She had never received Jinwei's salary. Even when she wanted to buy groceries, she had to ask his mother for it. The economic foundation determined the superstructure. If one's economy could not be independent, how could one be independent with dignity? Ning Shu tried his best to eat more every day. Moreover, the food was bought from a small restaurant outside the hospital. It was uncertain if the hygiene could be guaranteed, but it was not nutritious and the soup was very bland. How could there be enough milk in this way? To think that a virgin like her would suddenly have to relieve herself to breastfeed the child, this was so shameful that Ning Shu really wanted to cover his face and run away. Now, she really regretted accepting this mission. Ning Shu suddenly understood the pain and torment involved. Some mission enforcers had directly killed this family. After the child was born, Jinwei's father came to the hospital to take a look. Then, he went back to play chess and cards with the old man in the neighborhood. Jinwei's mother was not too willing to take care of the little girl, so Ning Shu hugged the child and slept with her. Last time, Ning Shu really saw the indifference and cruelty in this woman's bones. She actually treated her own granddaughter like this. She was also a woman. After staying in the hospital for 3 days, Jinwei's mother, her mother-in-law, wanted to let her leave the hospital. After 3 days, the stitches could not be removed. Jinwei's mother rushed to bring Ning Shu home to do her confinement. Staying in the hospital was a waste of money. Ning Shu lay on the bed and ignored her. The doctor said that she could only leave the hospital after the stitches were removed. Only then did she give up on the idea of leaving the hospital. However, her mouth kept muttering about how much it would cost. She didn't know if it was because Jinwei's mother's actions last time scared the child, but Nan kept crying and crying all night long. This made the people next to her have opinions. Jinwei's mother was even more impatient and directly scolded the child for being a troublemaker. Ning Shu asked her to change the diaper or wash the child's butt, so that the urine would not stain the child's skin. But she was not willing to do either. Ning Shu suspected that this child was not her granddaughter. What kind of heart did she have to ignore and be impatient with her own granddaughter? This was a child that was related to her by blood. Was it because Nan was not a boy? What era was it now? People like Jinwei's mother were the malignant supporters of feudal thinking. When Jinwei came to see Ning Shu and the child cried until Jinwei's head hurt. Jinwei did not even stay in bed with her. Every time Jinwei came to the hospital, Jinwei's mother told him to go back. She said that he had to go to work the next day and could not be too tired. So, Jinwei's daily routine was like completing a mission. He just came to the hospital to take a look. Ning Shu took a deep breath. Her head was dizzy as she lay on her side to coax the child. She silently chanted the clear heart mantra, hoping to calm the child's frightened heart. Ning Shu's tears fell as she chanted. She did not want to cry, but the tears fell. Her sad and depressed mood was like a dark cloud that could not see the light of day, shrouding her heart and unable to be dispelled. Ning Shu curled the corner of her mouth and tried to smile. Even if she wanted to cry with a smile. The exhaustion of her body had already infected her mind and soul. Despair was like a virus, invading her body and soul. Ning Shu chanted the clear heart mantra and gently patted the child with one hand. The child sobbed, but at least she fell asleep. After the child fell asleep, Ning Shu closed her eyes and began to cultivate. No matter what, the most important thing was her own body. Without a healthy body, everything was useless. Her body was drenched in sweat. Especially now that it was summer, she had not taken a shower since the C-section, so her body was full of the smell of sweat. And Jinwei's mother was not willing to wipe the child's butt. How could she wipe the sweat on her body for her? How could a mother-in-law serve her daughter-in-law? It was a beautiful dream. On the 6th day after delivery, Ning Shu removed the stitches and could be discharged from the hospital. And Jinwei came to the hospital to pick up Ning Shu and her mother. Ning Shu wore 2 more clothes, a coat and a hat to cover herself. She was the one who suffered from the disease of confinement. Others didn't care at all. Back home, Ning Shu made water to wipe the sweat on her body. Then she began to do the confinement. She planned the future while she was doing the confinement. At home, Ning Shu once again saw the neglect of the Yin family. A pregnant woman like her should eat some soft, easy to digest and nutritious food. But what the Yin family ate, they gave her a bowl of rice and vegetables. Ning Shu sneered, picked up the bowl and chewed carefully. She could not wrong herself. Chapter 935. On the 2nd day of discharge, Chen Ning's mother's family came over to deliver some gifts, such as eggs and pork legs. Chen Ning's mother sat by the bed and looked at the baby in the crib. She said to Ning Shu, "It's okay. Take care of your body and give birth to a second child." Ning Shu was speechless. Giving birth was so tiring. She was physically and mentally exhausted, and she was talking about giving birth to a second child. Was she really his biological mother? "We'll talk about it when the time comes," Ning Shu said lightly. "You're my daughter. I'll definitely love you. But women still have to give birth to a boy to have status at home," Chen Ning's mother said. Ning Shu let out a long breath. They were all women. Didn't they know that giving birth to a child was harmful to the body? For example, after being stabbed, these people were anxious to discuss how to stab again next time. At least wait until the wound healed and the body forgot the pain. Under such circumstances, Ning Shu's heart was stifled. "Mom, do you have money? Lend me some money." Ning Shu changed the topic. Chen Ning's mother frowned. "What do you need money for?" "Jinwei doesn't have money. The Yin family doesn't have money to give you. Your brother is dating now. He's preparing to get married. The money is used to decorate the new house," Chen Ning's mother said. Ning Shu grinned. This was a woman. After marriage, she was an outsider in her mother's family and in her husband's family. Neither side had a foothold. "Daughter, take care of your body. You have to tell your mother-in-law what you want to eat." Chen Ning's mother didn't want to talk about money. After 3 years, the wound has completely healed. Give birth to a son for the Yin family. Ning Shu lay on the bed and didn't speak. Chen Ning's mother thought for a while and put 200 yuan beside Ning Shu's pillow. She said, "Buy whatever you want to eat." "Thank you," Ning Shu said lightly. Chen Ning's mother talked to Ning Shu for a while. Seeing that Ning Shu didn't respond, she left. Before she left, she touched the child's face. When Jinwei came back at night, Ning Shu said to Jinwei, "I want to drink pig trotter soup. There's not enough milk for the child." Jinwei didn't say anything and went out of the bedroom to talk to his mother. Jinwei's mother immediately said loudly, "We don't have any pig trotters at home. My mom just sent some eggs and pig trotters over this morning. Why are there no more?" Ning Shu said to Jinwei, who had just entered the house. Jinwei frowned and sounded a little annoyed. "Mom, just stew some for her. She's making so much noise as soon as she comes back. It's really unsettling. Work is tiring, and when she comes back, she still has to face these trivial matters." In reality, Jinwei was also reprimanding Ning Shu for being a busybody. Ning Shu's expression didn't change, but he was laughing in his heart. Behind every chuckle were countless galloping grass mud horses. "She gave birth to your children, and you're still behaving like this when you just want a bowl of soup. A man who was spoiled by his parents, cold and selfish, was a straight man with cancer. Other than work, he basically didn't know how to do anything when he came back. He could really be said to be able to open his mouth and stretch out his hand for food. Just because of work, it was as if everyone had to give in to him, as if work was a big deal. I let you take care of the children at home, do the laundry, cook, and clean, but when I went to work, you couldn't even do it for a day. There was no such thing in the past. Back then, I had to work for 3 days after giving birth. Now, I'm lying in bed and still have to eat this and that, and Jinwei's mother said unhappily. There was some impatience between Jinwei's brows. Clearly, he was a little dissatisfied with Ning Shu, who had started the topic. She was so troublesome all the time. In Jinwei's heart, his wife should settle everything so that he could go to work without any worries and go home to have a good rest. Ning Shu ignored Jinwei and coaxed the child. Only when her emotions were stable could the child feel safe and not cry every day. She would also be relaxed. There was a bowl of pig trotter's soup for dinner, but there wasn't much meat, just a little fatty skin. There was no lean meat. Ning Shu smiled and took the bowl out of the room. When he reached the dining table, he saw a pot of pig trotters and hind legs in the middle of the table. Ning Shu poured a bowl of soup into the pot and scooped up a bowl of meat. At the dining table, the Yin family stared at Ning Shu in a daze. Ning Shu picked up a piece of meat with his fingers and stuffed it into his mouth. Jinwei frowned. What are you doing? Eating. It doesn't make sense for you to eat meat while I drink soup. Otherwise, everyone should stop playing. Ning Shu licked the oil on his fingers. You're really. Jinwei looked at Ning Shu, whose face was covered in oil, with disdain. He was very dissatisfied with Ning Shu, who was causing trouble. Chen Ning, the elders are still at the table. How can you do this? Jinwei's mother looked dissatisfied. If there were guests and you were like this, the Yin family's face would be lost by you. Even if you don't have face, the Yin family still has face. Ning Shu didn't use chopsticks. He picked up the meat with his hands and ate. Hearing his mother-in-law's words, he said, "Believe me, when I see you eating fish and meat, I can only drink soup. I really want to flip the table. Maybe I will flip the table next time." "Zhang Ning, are you crazy? How dare you talk like that?" Jinwei's mother was so angry that her whole body was trembling. She felt that her dignity was being challenged. "Actually, do you know that I'm sick?" Ning Shu had a strange look on his face. "I have severe postpartum depression. Maybe I will do something uncontrollable. Actually, flipping the table is a small matter. I'm just afraid that I will do something harmful." Ning Shu tilted his head and said with a smile. Ning Shu was smiling at Jinwei. Ning Shu's smile contained a bone-chilling coldness. Although his face was smiling brightly, it made Jinwei's heart skip a beat. He actually had a thought in his mind. His wife was really sick. Why are you making a fuss? Do you have to make a mess at home? The father-in-law, who usually didn't care about the family matters, spoke. He looked at Ning Shu and said, "As a daughter-in-law, you should act like a daughter-in-law and work hard to create a stable and peaceful family." Ning Shu cracked his mouth and smiled silently. This kind of stability and peace was maintained by making others suffer grievances and sacrifice. Once there was a demand, it would be a murderer who destroyed the harmony of the family. The father and son were the same. They both expected others to handle things well. If there was any grievance, they would endure it. They were the emperor. This kind of peace was maintained by sacrificing some people, and Chen Ning was the one who was sacrificed in this family. Dedication and sacrifice were not respected. They thought that this was what they should do. What were they protecting? Ning Shu covered his heart. "I'm so sad and angry. I want to flip the table." As Ning Shu spoke, he lifted the table with his hand. When he lifted it, the bowls and chopsticks on the table slid to the side. And Jinwei's parents' faces turned green. And Jinwei reached out to pull Ning Shu away. Ning Shu let go of his hand and the table shook. The soup on the table splashed, making the dishes on the table a mess. And Jinwei's mother was closer to the soup bowl. When Ning Shu lifted the table and put it on the table, the soup in the bowl splashed on her. She immediately jumped up and quickly took a piece of paper to wipe the soup off her body. Chapter 936. Chen Ning, I think you've taken the wrong medicine. How dare you do this? And Jinwei's mother stared angrily at Ning Shu with her eyes wide open. The dress she was wearing was very expensive. At the same time, it was also somewhat unbelievable. Chen Ning's personality was not bad. She basically had no major problems. She was also very active in her work. Even when she was pregnant, she would do some light work. But now, it was really unbearable. At the same time, she was very angry. When was it her turn to make a scene in this family? Chen Ning, what's wrong with you? What's the point of making a scene like this? And Jinwei frowned tightly and felt very embarrassed. What are you thinking? I really regret marrying you. Ning Shu said, I also regret marrying you. You eat meat, I drink soup, and I have to feed the baby. I'm so angry. I'm so miserable. Ning Shu took the bowl on the table with both hands and smashed it on the ground. Suddenly, the porcelain and soup splashed. Ah! And Jinwei's mother screamed. She was shocked by Ning Shu's sudden action. And Jinwei dodged the shards and looked at Ning Shu impatiently. When are you going to stop being unreasonable? Wah, wah, wah. In the bedroom, Nan Nan also burst into tears. Why don't you go and see the baby? And Jinwei said to Ning Shu. The baby was woken up by you. Ning Shu picked up the plate on the table and smashed it on the ground. It was you who woke her up, but you insist that I woke her up. Ning Shu took his bowl and scooped up the last bit of meat in the bowl. He took the bowl back to the bedroom and closed the bedroom door, leaving the few people in the living room with ugly expressions. Ning Shu put the bowl on the bed and slowly coaxed the baby. The baby gradually calmed down, probably because he smelled his mother's scent. In addition, Ning Shu was in a very good mood now. The baby seemed to be aware of Ning Shu's happy mood. He rubbed against Ning Shu's arms and stopped crying. Ning Shu coaxed the child while eating meat. When Jinwei came in, he saw Ning Shu with his mouth full of meat. His appearance was extremely ugly. Ning Shu glanced at him, completely ignoring Jinwei's disdainful expression. She had not been able to exchange for a fasting pill for this mission. Cultivating a peerless martial art required energy. If she did not eat her fill, how would she have the energy to cultivate? What's more, Ning Shu had to heal the wounds on his body with the little bit of qi gene he cultivated. He also had to send some of it to the child's body to strengthen the child's body. If the child was healthy, he would not fall sick easily. Chen Ning, you shouldn't have done that. And Jinwei walked to Ning Shu's bedside and said, You are my wife. You have to consider my reputation in everything you do. Your behavior just now made me very embarrassed. They are my parents. You should respect them. Ning Shu swallowed the meat in his mouth. They're not my parents. I didn't grow up eating your rice. How can you talk like that? Since you married into the Yin family, my parents are your parents. And Jinwei looked dissatisfied. You didn't grow up eating the Yin family's food. But since you married into the Yin family, you're eating the Yin family's food. You are now being raised by the Yin family. You can't be so willful. And Jinwei said, I hope today's incident will not happen again. Ning Shu raised his head, tilted his head and stared straight at Jinwei without saying a word. I'm talking to you. And Jinwei said. Ning Shu covered the child's ears with one hand and pressed the child into his arms. Then, slap. Ning Shu reached out his other greasy hand and slapped in Jinwei. And Jinwei's face was slapped to the side, and his glasses fell to the ground. And Jinwei seemed to be stunned by the slap and did not react for a long time. Ning Shu looked at his hand in disbelief and apologized with a crying face. "Honey, I'm sorry. I couldn't control myself. Does your face hurt? I'm sorry. I don't know why I did it. My mind was blank when I hit you. You must forgive me." Ning Shu squeezed out 2 drops of tears. And Jinwei turned his head, and his nostrils were trembling with anger. "Chen Ning, did you do it on purpose?" "No, I didn't do it on purpose." Ning Shu shook his head and blinked his eyes desperately. Tears came out of his eyes as he grabbed the corner of Jinwei's clothes. "You must forgive me. I didn't do it on purpose. You have to believe me. You have to believe me. If you don't believe me, I feel so bad." Ning Shu reached out his foot and kicked Jinwei's bedside lamp to the ground. Immediately, glass and plastic shards were scattered all over the floor. When he kicked, Ning Shu tried his best to cover the child's ears. The other side was against his stomach, so he did not scare the child. And Jinwei stared at Ning Shu dumbfoundedly, then looked at the mess on the ground. "You're simply a lunatic." "I'm sorry, Jinwei. My heart hurts. Don't do this to me. I can't control myself. I'm so sad, so sad." Ning Shu opened his mouth and howled. And Jinwei's face trembled. The half of his face that was slapped by Ning Shu was red. And Jinwei glared at Ning Shu and slammed the door. Ning Shu wiped the tears from his face and hummed a song to the child. Bang! The bedroom door opened again. And Jinwei's mother rushed in angrily. She pointed at Ning Shu and scolded, "Who do you think you are? How dare you hit your husband?" Ning Shu covered the child's ears and looked wronged. "Grandma, I didn't do it on purpose. Sometimes I can't control my behavior. I'm really sick. You." And Jinwei pointed at Ning Shu and saw the shards on the floor. "Is the lamp free? How long has it been used? You're a prodigal woman. You broke the plate and the lamp. Do you want to tear down this house?" Ning Shu shook his head. "No, I can't move the sofa. Grandma, take me to the hospital. I think I'm very sick. Maybe I accidentally killed you. You know, I can't control myself." Ning Shu carried the child and walked 2 steps towards Jinwei's mother. And Jinwei's mother immediately retreated. Her voice trembled as she said, "Don't scare people. I'm telling you, don't be a demon." Ning Shu took 2 more steps towards her. And Jinwei's mother immediately retreated 2 steps. Ning Shu felt wronged and said, "Grandma, I've never lied. I feel so tired. The world in my eyes has no color. Your face is so ugly, twisted, fierce and ugly. You're a vicious old woman. Are you scolding me in a roundabout way?" And Jinwei's mother was furious. "What, you don't believe me?" Ning Shu immediately raised his eyebrows and looked very irritable. "You're an old witch. I'm telling the truth. Why don't you believe me?" Ning Shu walked step by step towards Jinwei's mother. Chapter 937. Ning Shu walked towards Jinwei's mother with an indifferent expression. And Jinwei's mother was a little frightened by Ning Shu's appearance. She swallowed, but she didn't want to lose her dignity as a mother-in-law. She pointed at Ning Shu and said, "Chen Ning, I'm telling you, don't pretend to be crazy." "I'm not pretending to be crazy." Ning Shu said with a miserable expression, "Mother-in-law, you have to save me. I'm in so much pain." "You." And Jinwei's mother was stunned by Ning Shu's behavior. "Chen Ning, I'm telling you, if you continue to be like this, I'll ask Jinwei to divorce you. What did you say? Ning Shu looked at Jinwei's mother with an expressionless face. Who did you say you want Jinwei to divorce? Ning Shu stared at her. I didn't hear what you said. Ning Shu walked quickly to Jinwei's mother. What did you say? Jinwei's mother turned and ran out of the bedroom. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. She bullied the weak and feared the strong. That was why kind people were often bullied. If they were fierce, they wouldn't dare to do anything to you. Ning Shu locked the bedroom door. When the door was closed, Ning Shu hissed. His wound hurt a little. Ning Shu fed the baby milk and placed him in the crib. He sat cross-legged on the bed and began to cultivate. He had to cultivate more qi jing to repair his body. He couldn't do it without martial arts. He was afraid that this family would tie him up as a lunatic in the future. If he wasn't comfortable, no one would be able to live well. Ning Shu wouldn't be like Chen Ning, crying silently and enduring silently, hoping to receive the care of a cold-hearted husband. She couldn't suffer alone. It was better if she wasn't good, if everyone wasn't good. Jinwei's mother, who was scared away by Ning Shu, said to her husband, this daughter-in-law is really turning the world upside down. She even called me an old witch. I was really deceived by her back then. I didn't expect her to be such a person. Jinwei's mother was so angry that her face turned green. Chen Ning wasn't like this in the past. Chen Ning used to be very obedient. Don't tell me you think you can be so smug just because you gave birth to a little girl. Jinwei's mother complained to her husband endlessly. That's enough. Don't talk so much. I'm annoyed. Jinwei's father said angrily. Jinwei's mother immediately shut her mouth, looking a little wronged. Jinwei's mother then looked at Jinwei, who was sitting on the sofa, and said, you have to teach your wife a lesson. Which family's daughter-in-law is like this? She even dares to hit her husband. What else does she want from us? Jinwei pursed his lips tightly. Half of his face that had been slapped by Ning Shu was a little swollen. He looked impatient. At first, you guys said that Chen Ning's character was not bad, that you could marry her and take care of her family. I listened to you guys, but now Chen Ning is like a crazy woman. Hearing her son scolding, Jinwei's mother also felt wronged. How would I know that she was like this? After she got pregnant, her nature was exposed. She had been pretending before. She felt that after having a child and gaining a foothold in the family, she started to be arrogant and despotic, Jinwei's mother said. Jinwei thought for a moment. Tomorrow is the weekend anyway. Take her to the hospital to see if she's really crazy. Jinwei's expression was very dissatisfied. Chen Ning had hit him and still hadn't come to apologize to him. He worked hard to support the mother and daughter. He worked hard for this family and still caused trouble all day long. What illness can she have? She's just pretending to be crazy. Jinwei's mother rolled her eyes and said. Jinwei ignored Jinwei's mother's nagging and prepared to go to the bedroom to talk to Ning Shu about going to the hospital tomorrow for a checkup. He also wanted him to apologize to him. However, the door was locked. Jinwei's expression changed. What was this person doing in the room? Jinwei asked his mother to find the key. When he opened the door, he saw the mother and daughter lying on the bed sleeping comfortably. Jinwei didn't think that he was an angry person, but he was so angry that he rudely shook Ning Shu awake. Ning Shu opened her eyes and stared straight at Jinwei. You're hurting my wound. It hurts a lot. Jinwei let go of Ning Shu's shoulder and said, go to the hospital tomorrow for a checkup. I'm still in confinement. I can't be exposed to the wind. What if I get a disease during confinement? Ning Shu asked. Now you're awake. Jinwei's voice was sarcastic. Ning Shu's face flushed red. She lowered her head and said shyly, "My mother said that I have to take good care of my body and give birth to a son for you." "It's still early to give birth to a son," and Jinwei said impatiently. "What?" Ning Shu immediately straightened her back. "Don't you want to have a son with me? Are you going to listen to your mother and divorce me?" Ning Shu's expression was cold and sarcastic. Then she curled her lips. "I know you dislike me for not giving birth to a son for you." And Jinwei looked at Ning Shu's behavior. Dark clouds rose in his heart. This woman was too fickle. "Go to the hospital tomorrow." And Jinwei said and left the room. Anyway, he didn't stay at home. He didn't know if he went to work or somewhere else. Ning Shu shrugged her shoulders. It didn't matter. Anyway, she had severe postpartum depression. Ning Shu got out of bed and walked to the bedroom door. She said to Jinwei's mother, "I'm hungry. I want to eat meat. We just had lunch and you're hungry again. Where did you eat so much?" And Jinwei's mother saw that her daughter-in-law was ordering her around. It was really overturning the sky. The lowest person in the family actually commanded her like this. A daughter-in-law had to command her mother-in-law to do things. Ning Shu said, "I'm in confinement now. I can't be hungry during confinement. You know, I have to feed Nan Nan. How can I feed the baby if I'm not full? Don't you want to give me food?" Ning Shu asked with a frown. "Why don't you give me food? I'm hungry, very hungry. Mother-in-law, do you want to starve me to death?" Ning Shu's face was aggrieved. "Get her something to eat. It's really annoying." And Jinwei's father went out with his hands on his back. There were only mother-in-law, daughter-in-law and a child who didn't know anything at home. "Mother-in-law, I want to eat meat," Ning Shu said to Jinwei's mother. She turned around and closed the door. Then she began to cultivate. Jinwei's mother was so angry that she had to serve her daughter-in-law. When she was a daughter-in-law, she served her mother-in-law well. How unlucky she was to meet such a daughter-in-law. Jinwei's mother has a sense of superiority. She is already a mother-in-law, so her daughter-in-law will serve her well in the future. When you marry into the family, you have to follow the rules of the family. She gave birth to a girl and expected her to serve her daughter-in-law. Jinwei's mother felt that her dignity as a mother-in-law had been insulted. Chapter 938. Ning Shu used all his qi to repair the wound on his abdomen. If a man saw a hole in the belly to take out the baby, he would probably be scared out of his mind. Men still took the pain of pregnancy for granted. Your role was to give birth to the baby, take care of the baby, and then solve the man's physiological needs. Other than that, you had no other role. You didn't need to have your own life. Because of the spiritual energy, Ning Shu's wound healed very quickly. Now he could run around the house without any problem. However, Ning Shu wouldn't look for trouble. He would do it comfortably during the confinement period. He wouldn't get better so quickly to serve the family. The point was that the other party might not be grateful even if he served them. Ning Shu looked at the baby in the crib and sighed. Jinwei's mother knocked on Ning Shu's door when she finished cooking. Jinwei's mother made a pot of meat, but Ning Shu ate it all, which made Jinwei's mother stunned. Ning Shu burped, feeling his stomach slowly squirming, and a warm feeling spread to his limbs. "You eat a lot but don't do anything. Which daughter-in-law is like you? The Yin family is really unlucky to have married a daughter-in-law like you." Jinwei's mother couldn't help scolding. Anyway, the relationship between the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law was quite tense now, and the Yin family didn't like her. Because she was disobedient, not virtuous, and a troublemaker. Ning Shu turned a deaf ear to Jinwei's mother's scolding. He closed the bedroom door and went back to his room to cultivate. First, he changed the baby's diaper. Because of what happened during the day, and Jinwei was quite dissatisfied with Ning Shu. He didn't even enter the bedroom and slept in another room. He wanted to torture Ning Shu by ignoring the Cold War. In addition, there was a baby in the bedroom. A woman who didn't bathe much during confinement and breastfeeding. The smell was really bad. The baby had to wake up several times a night and couldn't sleep at all. Ning Shu didn't care about Jinwei's attitude at all. You can do whatever you want. It's as if I want to sleep on the same bed as you. Without you sleeping beside me, I can cultivate more quickly. This was the cold violence that the Yin family liked to use the most. Once they were dissatisfied with you, they would ignore you and not give you a good look. They would put the entire family in a low-pressure environment until you couldn't take it anymore and admitted your mistake. Early the next morning, the Yin family took Ning Shu to have her nerves checked to see if she was crazy for going crazy at the slightest provocation. Perhaps it was related to the family's future decisions. This time, even Jinwei's father went with him. The family of 3 walked in front while Ning Shu pushed the stroller behind them. They were a family, while she was an outsider. She felt that Chen Ning's existence was to serve this family. However, the Yin family's attitude was still high and mighty. If you don't have a job, the Yin family will feed you. Do the housework. That's what you should do. You should do what a daughter-in-law should do. Who asked you to rely on the Yin family? Damn, it felt like the Yin family was raising a servant, and they didn't even pay him a salary. The group took a car to the hospital and arrived at the obstetrics and gynecology department. The doctor asked about Ning Shu's situation. How do you feel? I feel very tired and I want to cry. I'm sad for no reason. I can't control my temper. I'm worried about the child's health and the child's future. I'm very irritable and I'm very depressed. I'm afraid that my husband will divorce me because I didn't give birth to a son. Hearing Ning Shu's words, the doctor couldn't help but shake his head. Is your diet normal? I eat a lot. I can't control myself, but I'm afraid of getting fat. I'm afraid that my husband will divorce me because I'm fat, Ning Shu said with a hollow gaze. And Jinwei heard that Ning Shu was afraid of divorcing him, which made him very irritated. It was as if a rock was pressing down on him, making him very unhappy. He felt like he was dragging a big burden. And Jinwei's mother looked a little proud. She was not a woman. Women were all afraid of being abandoned by men. And Jinwei's mother had a feeling in her heart that she wanted her son to abandon her. Seeing her abandoned and pitiful look, begging not to abandon her, just thinking about it made Jinwei's mother feel an inexplicable sense of pleasure in her heart. Chen Ning, who had given birth to a child, was too outrageous. She needed to be taught a good lesson. Hearing Ning Shu's words and looking at Ning Shu's absent-minded face, the doctor couldn't help but shake his head and say, the mother has severe postpartum depression. This is a kind of depression that is not neurological. And Jinwei didn't want to hear this kind of professional jargon. He only cared about whether it could be cured. Can it be cured? Generally, there's no need for drug treatment. It's just a psychological intervention for the mother to keep her in a good mood, the doctor said. And Jinwei frowned tightly with a look of impatience. He married a woman to take care of everything at home, but now she had this kind of illness. She had some delicate postpartum depression. She didn't do anything and still wanted to keep her in a good mood. And Jinwei already felt that his wife's mood was particularly changeable. Maybe she would explode at any time. Irritated, the woman not only couldn't take care of things at home, but also had to be treated like an ancestor. What was this called? And Jinwei was dissatisfied, and so were the old couple of the Yin family. Coming out of the hospital, the family was silent. Ning Shu pushed the baby carriage and whispered to Jinwei, Jinwei, you won't divorce me, will you? And Jinwei frowned tightly and didn't say anything. You won't divorce me, will you? Ning Shu asked again, as if she had to get an answer. And Jinwei looked at the aggressive Ning Shu. She seemed to be holding back her anger, which made Jinwei very annoyed and disgusted. She interrogated him like a prisoner. Jinwei, you won't abandon us, will you? Ning Shu looked at Jinwei's constipated face, held back her laughter and asked anxiously. I won't. Jinwei's voice almost came out from between his teeth. He was unwilling and had a perfunctory tone. Ning Shu smiled and nodded happily. I knew you wouldn't divorce me. You wouldn't abandon me and my daughter. Jinwei felt that his whole person was not very good. In Jinwei's view, depression was mental illness. If other people and colleagues in the company knew that his wife was mentally ill, where would he put his face? How would he stand in the company and face the strange gazes of his colleagues? Jinwei was extremely irritated. In his heart, he was abnormally annoyed and impatient with Ning Shu. He even felt disgusted with his own daughter. Jinwei actually didn't have any deep feelings for his daughter. He didn't change the baby's diaper and put her down after holding her for a while. Because the child was surrounded by an unfamiliar smell, when he held her, the child felt very insecure and cried. After a while, Jinwei didn't hold Nan Nan. Giving birth to a daughter with depression, and he didn't know when she would get better. If it continued like this, not only would he be busy with work, he would also have to raise a useless burden. Chapter 939. Ever since Ning Shu was diagnosed with severe postpartum depression, the atmosphere in the family had been very anxious. Jinwei was even more impatient with Ning Shu. When he saw Ning Shu, he frowned and didn't even say a word to Ning Shu. It was fine if he didn't talk to Ning Shu, but Jinwei didn't care about his daughter at all. Ever since the child was born, Ning Shu had taken care of the child alone. Moreover, because of Ning Shu's qi gene, the child ate and slept well every day. She would only cry when she felt uncomfortable. Therefore, the child didn't have much of a presence in the family. In order to prevent Ning Shu from going crazy, Jinwei said to his mother as soon as he returned home from the hospital, tie her up. Ning Shu, who was holding the child, was speechless. There was nothing that couldn't be done. Jinwei's mother, Ning Shu, snorted and went to find a rope. There was no rope, so she tied Ning Shu with the leather wire of the electric plug. Ning Shu immediately curled her lips. Jinwei, how can you do this to me? I'm a patient, not a lunatic. You are a lunatic, Jinwei said impatiently with a cold expression. Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu held the child and leaned against the child's back. She injected some qi gene into the child's body and made the child fall asleep. Then, she placed the child in the pram. Ning Shu looked at the family members who were glaring at her and asked coldly, do you have to do this to me? I'm doing this for your own good. You're making everyone uncomfortable. I have to go to work every day. I can't let you make me so tired that I can't go to work the next day, Jinwei said. I'm the only one supporting the family now. Not only can you not take care of the family, but you're also causing trouble. Jinwei looked at Ning Shu. Do you know how much pressure I'm under? I live like a dog in the company, and I have to face a mess at home. Can you think for me? Ning Shu was speechless. If she thinks for you, she deserves it. She's such a selfish person. This kind of husband was not someone who would share trials and tribulations. This kind of postpartum depression depended on the mother's mediation. He just needed to show some concern and help coax the child when it cried. It was such a simple matter. Once something happened, Jinwei would first consider his own gains and losses, his reputation, and his career. Moreover, Ning Shu could tell that Jinwei still wanted a divorce. There were so many women in the world. He could just marry another one. He would find someone to help him tidy up the house. Once the house was done, he would be able to enjoy himself after work. Their status was even lower than that of nannies. At the very least, nannies paid them. They worked for free and had to warm the bed, give birth to children, and call people who were not their own parents their parents. When you recover, we won't lock you up or tie you up, and Jinwei said. Ning Shu was dumbfounded and didn't know what to say. How could he get better with such treatment? Ning Shu could only kneel and write the word respect. Ning Shu quickly walked in front of Jinwei. He raised his leg and kicked Jinwei's crotch. He had had enough of this selfish man. Men were calculative people. If a woman calculates something, a man calculates something that can destroy a person. Ugh. Jinwei was kicked in the crotch by Ning Shu. His eyes turned white and he fell to the ground. He curled up like a shrimp with his legs between his legs and made a sound. Jinwei, how could you do this to me? I'm so sad. Ning Shu grabbed Jinwei's face. The veins on Jinwei's forehead bulged. He could not speak a complete sentence. He was panting heavily. Bitch, how dare you hit my son? Jinwei's mother picked up the wire and whipped it at Ning Shu. Ning Shu dodged and the wire ended up hitting Jinwei. Jinwei cried out in pain. His face was ferocious and his eyes were filled with hostility. He reached out his hand and grabbed Ning Shu's ankle. With a forceful pull, Ning Shu's body fell to the ground with a loud thud. Ning Shu groaned. He felt the knife wound on his stomach hurt. Jinwei grabbed Ning Shu's ankle tightly. I gave you face, but you didn't want it. I can't bear a woman like you. I want you to pay the price. Hurry up and tie her up. She's going crazy again. Jinwei shouted at his mother. Jinwei's mother immediately tied Ning Shu with the wire. Ning Shu punched Jinwei's mother in the eye. She was in so much pain that she cried out. Jinwei was so angry that he wanted to die. His lower body was in pain. He grabbed Ning Shu's ankle and dug his thumbnail deep into Ning Shu's flesh. He even used all his strength to cut open her skin. Ning Shu's ankle immediately started bleeding. Jinwei's expression was abnormally ferocious with hatred. Jinwei did not have any feelings for Chen Ning. Their marriage was the result of the elders of the two families. Now this woman was so insensible. Jinwei hated Ning Shu. With such a woman, he did not know how many strange looks he would receive. For a moment, Jinwei really wanted this woman to disappear. Ning Shu kicked Jinwei's hand with her other foot. Jinwei's hand was broken by Ning Shu's kick. Jinwei's father, who had been watching from the sidelines, also made a move to suppress Ning Shu. Ning Shu mobilized the qi gene in her body and kicked hard at Jinwei's hand that was holding her. Jinwei's hand immediately made a subtle cracking sound. Jinwei's hand was numb from the pain. He did not have the strength to grab Ning Shu's ankle. Ning Shu turned over and got up from the ground. She directly picked up the fruit plate on the coffee table and threw it on the ground. Then, with a bang, she overturned the coffee table. The marble coffee table was broken into pieces. You are simply. Jinwei's mother pointed at Ning Shu. Her face was twitching with heartache. Her eyes were dark. Rebellious. Jinwei's mother saw the sleeping child out of the corner of her eye. She suddenly strode to the stroller and picked up Nan Nan. She fiercely shouted at Ning Shu, if you dare to break things again, I won't let you be with the child. I don't want my granddaughter to be with a lunatic. Jinwei's mother held the child very tightly. The child was very uncomfortable and cried loudly. Jinwei's mother didn't coax the crying child at all. Instead, she shouted angrily, what are you crying for? You're here to collect debts. You and your mother are here to collect debts. The Yin family must have had 8 generations of bad luck to have you too. The child cried even louder. Chen Ning, put down the vase. Jinwei's mother shouted at Ning Shu. Ning Shu took a deep breath. She really had a new understanding of the Yin family's ruthlessness. Now, they were using the child as a hostage to threaten her. This child was related to this family by blood. She was their descendant. Just because she was a girl, they treated her with contempt and disregard. Chapter 940. If it was a boy, would he be willing to let her cry like this? He didn't even coax her. If the child cried too hard, she would get a hernia. Ning Shu had an unprecedented feeling in his heart. Humans were for reproduction and survival, but what was the use of continuing the bloodline of such a family? Cold-blooded and utilitarian. Not to mention for the entire human race, he couldn't even live a good life, let alone for the entire human race. Oh, everyone had been like this, so everyone had to live like this. Endure, 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 and in the end, their lives were over. They would die with a grand funeral and be satisfied with their lives. Ning Shu held the vase and confronted the Yin family, using his own bloodline to threaten her, an outsider. Using a mother's love for her child. Ning Shu's bottom line was refreshed again. He looked around at the three Yin family members, put the vase, and said, "Give the child to me first. She's crying so hard." The child's face was flushed red from holding it in. And Jinwei stood up from the ground with the help of the wall. His glasses were cracked, and his face was covered with Ning Shu's fingernail marks. He looked very embarrassed. "Don't move. I'll tie you up first. Otherwise, you'll go crazy and hurt the child." And Jinwei arched his hips, and his movements were a little strange. "Postpartum depression will hurt the child. I'm worried about you if you go crazy like this," and Jinwei said. The negotiation scene was both funny and sad. "Let me coax the child first," Ning Shu said calmly. "I'm very calm now, very calm." Ning Shu felt his ankle hurt. He looked down and saw that the place wherein Jinwei had pinched was bleeding and flowing down his ankle into his shoes. His shoes were moist and warm. "Why should I believe you? Who knows if you'll suddenly go crazy again?" And Jinwei said coldly. At the same time, he stood in front of his mother, blocking his mother and child to prevent Ning Shu from snatching the child. Ning Shu couldn't see the child. He could only hear the child crying hoarsely. "Chen Ning, since you're awake now, let's talk about the divorce," and Jinwei said. "You're not suitable for me." Ning Shu was expressionless. His legs hurt from standing, so he sat on the sofa. Ning Shu's body moved, and the Yin family members could not help but take a step back. It seemed that they were still afraid that Ning Shu would go crazy. "Divorce? Why do you want a divorce?" Ning Shu brushed his hair and looked innocent. "You can get a divorce just because you say so. Let me tell you, according to the marriage law, during the woman's pregnancy, a year after delivery, or half a year after termination of pregnancy, the man is not allowed to file for divorce. Even if you file for divorce, the court will not accept it." Ning Shu pointed at himself. "The court will only accept it if I ask for a divorce." Ning Shu crossed his legs. "Besides, I have severe postpartum depression now. Do you think you can get a divorce?" If he wanted to get a divorce, he would get a divorce. It was like throwing away a burden. When he couldn't serve you anymore, he would immediately abandon you. He didn't have any human feelings at all. The two of them had been married for almost 2 years, but Jinwei had never bought anything for Chen Ning, nor had he given her anything for her birthday. These things were all external, and it wasn't that important whether they existed or not. However, Jinwei had never even said a word of thanks to her. "You." Jinwei looked at Ning Shu in shock. "How do you know this?" Jinwei didn't know the details. He only thought that a divorce was a divorce, but he didn't expect it to be so troublesome. Did he have to endure this lunatic for a year? Not to mention a year, he didn't want to endure a day. Not to mention a day, just staying under the same roof with this crazy woman was uncomfortable. It was so annoying. Ning Shu smiled shyly at Jin Wei. Because I was afraid that you would divorce me, I checked all kinds of information. After all, he was someone who had been a lawyer. And Jin Wei saw Ning Shu smiling and felt disgusted. No matter how beautiful she was now, she was still a crazy woman. Besides, this woman wasn't very beautiful. And Jin Wei looked away and said angrily, "Then what do you want? How can you get a divorce?" Ning Shu said calmly, "Give me the child first. If anything happens to my child, I can't guarantee that I won't do anything." "No." And Jin Wei refused without thinking. "If you agree to the divorce, I'll give you the child." Ning Shu was speechless. "Jin Wei, I won't divorce you even if I die." Ning Shu didn't ask for the child anymore. And Jin Wei was so angry at Ning Shu's rogue attitude that the veins on his forehead throbbed. "But I hate you. I don't want to live with you anymore." Ning Shu waved her hand and said earnestly, "Don't be so willful. Marriage isn't a game. Give me the child and we'll talk." And Jin Wei was speechless. Crazy woman. She was different. And Jin Wei rubbed his forehead and said to his mother, "Give her the child." "No, unless she agrees to the divorce," and Jin Wei's mother said as she held the child tightly. "Give it to her first." And Jin Wei looked at Ning Shu, who was sitting leisurely with his legs crossed, and there was an irritation in his voice that couldn't be suppressed. "Give it to her and she treats it like a treasure." And Jin Wei's father said to his wife in annoyance. His expression was the same as his son's, full of annoyance. Obviously, he was very dissatisfied with Ning Shu, who was causing trouble. And Jin Wei's mother glanced at Ning Shu and didn't dare to go over. After all, she was punched earlier and her eyes still hurt. "Give it to her. I don't want a daughter-in-law like her." And Jin Wei's mother carried the child to Jin Wei. "Mom, how do you want me to go over?" He was kicked in the crotch by the crazy woman and was in so much pain that he couldn't walk. And Jin Wei's mother had no choice but to hand the child to Ning Shu. Then, she immediately moved away from Ning Shu, afraid that Ning Shu would punch her again. Ning Shu coaxed the crying child. He probably smelled his mother's scent and stopped crying. Ning Shu injected some qi into the child and coaxed him to sleep. The family of three looked at Ning Shu without moving. After tearing apart their relationship as husband and wife, Chen Ning and Jin Wei were even worse than strangers, and strangers who hated each other. Ning Shu whispered the mind-clearing mantra and coaxed the child to sleep. Ning Shu raised his head and looked at the three people. All three of them had cold faces and looked at Ning Shu warily. Ning Shu stood up with the child in his arms. And Jin Wei said, "Let's talk." Before Jin Wei could finish his words, he watched in a daze as the crazy woman ran away with the child in her arms. Did she have a relapse again? And Jin Wei endured the pain in his crotch and chased after Ning Shu. Ning Shu climbed the stairs to the top floor of the residential area, and the family of three chased after him. Ning Shu took off his shoes as he ran and smeared the blood on his ankle all over his calf. Then, he messed up his hair, making it look like a chicken coop. Chapter 941. Ning Shu ran to the top floor with the child in her arms. She stood on the edge of the balcony and looked down. Damn, it's so high. How did Chen Ning have the courage to jump down? And Jin Wei caught up, panting and pale. Then the old couple also caught up. And Jin Wei's father's face was livid. "Do you want everyone to know?" And Jin Wei and Ning Shu walked over and said in a low voice, "Stop it." Ning Shu covered the child's ears and shouted sharply, "Don't come over. If you come any closer, I'll jump down." Ning Shu moved a little to the side. And Jin Wei stopped and scolded, "Chen Ning, come here. Don't make a fool of yourself." We'll talk when we get back. You're not allowed to come over. Don't come over. Ning Shu shouted sharply. And Jin Wei could only stop. Ning Shu cried loudly. The whole community was attracted by the situation on the top floor. It was in their nature to watch a show, especially a show like this. Soon, a lot of people gathered below the house. Many people even climbed to the top floor. The top floor became lively all of a sudden. The Yin family's faces couldn't be looked at. And Jinwei's face was full of disgust and hatred for Ning Shu. Especially when he heard the discussion around him, he was so angry that his body trembled and he clenched his fists tightly. Chen Ning, be good. We'll talk when we get back. And Jinwei said gently to Ning Shu, but his eyes were full of disgust and impatience when he looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu shook her head in horror. I'm not going back. I don't want to go back. If I go back, you'll tie me up and stab me with something again. Chen Ning, who stabbed you? And Jinwei's mother couldn't help but shout. My leg hurts. Ning Shu touched her ankle and felt blood on her hand. The onlookers guessed how the wound was caused. They looked like they were watching a gossip. Some people even called the police. Jinwei's mother, what's wrong with your daughter-in-law? Some women asked Jinwei's mother. And Jinwei's mother's face darkened. Who knows? She's crazy. I'm not crazy. The doctor just said that I have postpartum depression. I don't need to take medicine. It won't cost a lot of money. Don't tie me up. Don't divorce me. Ning Shu said while wiping his tears. His hands were stained with blood, and he wiped the blood on his face. The surrounding people looked at the Yin family with strange eyes. What did this family do to force their daughter-in-law to death? Using death to prove one's sincerity. Moreover, people sympathize with the weak. Ning Shu knelt on the ground with a thud. His face twitched. Damn, it really hurts. Jin Wei, hubby, don't divorce me. Next time, I'll definitely give birth to a boy. I'll definitely give birth to a boy for the Yin family. Ning Shu cried out miserably, I can take care of Nan Nan myself, don't divorce me. When the surrounding people saw how well she sang, they couldn't help but ask Jinwei's mother, your daughter-in-law hasn't finished her confinement yet, right? How did she end up like this? It's not my mother-in-law's fault. The doctor said that I have postpartum depression and sometimes my temper is a little irritable. Ning Shu wiped his tears, as long as Jin Wei doesn't divorce me, I can take care of myself and the child. When the incision is healed, I'll give birth to a boy for the Yin family. I'll definitely give birth to a boy. Ning Shu's attitude was so humble and pitiful that it made the Yin family extremely angry. That's enough, Chen Ning. I didn't know you had such ability. Who are you trying to threaten by doing this? And Jin Wei couldn't stand the gazes of the surrounding people. This crazy woman. If this matter were to spread to the company, how would he behave? Ning Shu quickly stood up and moved a little to the side with the child in her arms. He said miserably, you still want to divorce me, right? I'm really not crazy. I just have postpartum depression. Why are you in such a hurry to divorce me? Ning Shu os, damn, I can't move anymore. If I move anymore, I'll fall. The siren of the police car approached from afar. Soon, a policeman came up. Ning Shu advised, don't kill yourself so easily. You still have a child in your arms. So what if it's a child? My in-laws don't like girls at all. They never cared for the child. They didn't change the child's diapers. She's not a boy. The Yin family wants a boy. Ning Shu blabbered on and on. The people of the Yin family were like that. Ning Shu's words made the Yin family extremely angry. Ning Shu wouldn't be like Chen Ning. It was fine if he jumped down. After a long time, the Yin family would be fine. They would still live their lives. But now there was a precedent of forcing a daughter-in-law to death. Let's see which family would dare to marry their daughter easily. Even if they sold their daughter to marry him, it would definitely make the family bleed. And they had to have a son. No woman could guarantee that she could have a son at once. Besides, it was up to the man to have a son. The policeman was also a little helpless. He whispered to Jinwei, "Now stabilize your wife's mood and say that you won't divorce her." Won't divorce? After going through this incident, he had to leave. Jinwei pursed his lips and clenched his fists tightly. He didn't say anything for a long time. Ning Shu opened his eyes wide and looked at Jinwei expectantly. Then, he looked more and more disappointed. "I knew you wanted to divorce me because I didn't give birth to a boy. It's because I have a little postpartum depression. I just need to adjust myself for a while and I'll be fine. Can't you wait? Why do you have to divorce me in such a hurry? After the divorce, you're going to get married again. You don't like children now. When you get married again, the child will have a stepmother. What about my child?" Ning Shu wailed. "It's better to die with me now so that you won't suffer in the future." The surrounding people looked at the family even more strangely. The policeman couldn't help but say to Jinwei, "Your wife just gave birth to a child. Can't you be more considerate? Quickly tell her that you won't divorce." Jinwei opened his mouth and finally said, "I won't divorce you. Are you satisfied now? Really?" Ning Shu's tears turned into laughter. She took 2 steps forward and her face immediately changed. She took a step back and said, "You must be lying to me. Trick me into going back and tie me up. I can't go out anymore. Then jump, Chen Ning. Don't go too far." Jinwei was so angry with Ning Shu that he lost his mind and poured a basin of feces on the family's head. The family's reputation was ruined by this woman. This woman did it on purpose. Ning Shu blinked and blinked his tears. "You hate me so much. If we can't divorce, you'll let me die. Fuck, the wind on the roof is so strong. It's a little cold. Quickly pull me over." The policeman had completely given up on letting Jinwei comfort Ning Shu. Seeing Jinwei like this, he knew that his wife was not doing well at home. She was injured and no one treated her. Chapter 942. Under the repeated assurances of the police, they even promised to visit Ning Shu every 3 days to make sure that the family would not do anything to Ning Shu. With Ning Shu's current strength, the family really couldn't do anything to Ning Shu, but she still asked hesitantly, "Really? Will they tie me up with wires?" Jinwei's face was so dark that it couldn't be looked at. His family's dirty linen had become the laughing stock of the whole community after dinner and tea. "This lunatic, the police moved to Ning Shu's side and said to Ning Shu, 'We will definitely ensure your safety. Don't worry.' The police reached out and pulled Ning Shu to a safe place." Ning Shu breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, she didn't have to be exposed to the wind. Ning Shu also asked Jinwei, "Honey, you said you wouldn't divorce me." Jinwei looked at Ning Shu viciously and turned to leave. But his walking was a little strange, like a duck. Ning Shu blinked and cried silently. The family turned and went downstairs. No one came to help Ning Shu hold the child. Not killing Ning Shu was already considered a form of restraint after causing so much trouble to the family. Ning Shu lowered her head, looking extremely lonely and scared. She limped downstairs with the child in her arms. The police sent Ning Shu back to the family and educated the family not to abuse their daughter-in-law. Ning Shu returned to the bedroom with the child in her arms. She put the child in the crib and shook her arms. After holding the child for so long, her arms were sore. Ning Shu went to the bathroom to wipe the blood off her legs. Looking at the wound on her ankle, she was ruthless, and so was Jin Wei. Anyway, there was a deep hatred between them and they wanted to kill each other. The Yin family was a mess. Ning Shu locked herself in the bedroom, and the work fell to Jin Wei's mother. If Chen Ning had the lowest status in the family, then Jin Wei's mother was the second from the bottom. That was why Jin Wei's mother liked to look for superiority in Chen Ning. Jin Wei's mother cleaned up the trash, broken glass, and porcelain. The father and son of the Yin family sat on a chair, facing each other in silence. "Dad, I want to divorce Chen Ning. The Yin family doesn't want such a daughter-in-law." Jin Wei said, "We have to divorce her, no matter what the price." Jin Wei's father shook his head. "Now is not the time to get a divorce. After what she did, if we get a divorce immediately, what will others think of our family? We are at a disadvantage. What if she blackmails us?" Jin Wei's father said. "She still dares to blackmail us. It's already good enough that we didn't ask her to return the 100,000 dowry." Jin Wei's mother said indignantly. "What right does she have to blackmail us? You're such a lazy woman. Why don't you help take care of the children? Why do you only know how to play mahjong and square dance with the women in the neighborhood?" Jin Wei's father pointed at her and scolded. "Don't you also play cards and chess every day?" Jin Wei's mother retorted. "I have a retirement salary. Do you? These things should be done by you women. Do you want me, a father-in-law, to take care of my daughter-in-law? I can't believe you can think of something like that." Jin Wei's father pointed at her. "I just said a few words, and you're talking back." Jin Wei's mother felt very wronged. "I didn't go through the confinement period like this when I gave birth. Why is she so precious and so pretentious that she committed suicide? I think she did it on purpose. Okay, I just want to divorce her now." Jin Wei said, "I don't want to live with such a woman for a minute. Wait a little longer. Don't be in the teeth of the storm." Jin Wei's father sighed. Ning Shu opened the door and said to the Yin family, "I'm hungry. I want to eat meat. Go eat shit." Jin Wei's mother scolded Ning Shu. "You still have the nerve to ask for food." Ning Shu tilted his head and looked at the Yin family expressionlessly. Jin Wei's father scolded, "Go cook. What are you waiting for?" Jin Wei's mother had not finished cleaning up the garbage in the living room, and now she was being ordered to cook. She threw the broom in her hand away angrily and went into the kitchen to cook. Ning Shu glanced at Jin Wei's phone on the table and ran over to grab it. Jin Wei immediately stood up and shouted, "Chen Ning, what's wrong with you? You want to divorce me? Do you have another woman?" Ning Shu swiped Jin Wei's phone, and the phone was snatched away by Jin Wei. "Chen Ning, I'm warning you. Don't challenge my patience." Jin Wei put the phone in his pocket. "Don't think that I won't divorce you because I'm afraid," Ning Shu said without changing his expression, "but before that, you have to endure my moodiness for a year. You see, I'm awake now, but I don't know what I'll do in the next second. I really want to die. Maybe I'll drag you down with me," Ning Shu said with a smile. "Hubby, can't we just live a good life? Was this like living a good life?" Jin Wei slammed the door and left. Ning Shu shouted at Jin Wei's back, "Hubby, today is the weekend. Where are you going?" Jin Wei didn't pay any attention to Ning Shu and left without looking back. Ning Shu shrugged and looked indifferent. He turned and saw Jin Wei's father staring at him. He asked, "Father-in-law, do you have something to say to your daughter-in-law? You don't want to commit suicide now. What's the point of acting on your own?" Jin Wei's father said, "What grievances can't you say? Why do you have to make a scene like this? Even if I say it, you won't care. You'll only blame me for making trouble." Ning Shu said, "Depression is like this. I can have thoughts of suicide at any time. Maybe I'll die with a jump, or maybe I'll suddenly get through it, and then I'll try to commit suicide again. Over and over again. Father-in-law, don't you think it's painful? Ning Shu's tone was light, with an indescribable gloominess. It was obviously a disease, but few people cared about it. Why? Because women were in a weak position, their families would only think that they were pretentious and meddlesome. In addition, depression was not a disease that many people took seriously. There was no justice in this family. It relied on the sacrifice of some people to maintain peace and happiness, and there was no compensation for the sacrifice. Do you really want to live with Jinwei? And Jinwei's father, Ning Shu, said. Yes, I want to live with him, but he doesn't want to live with me. Ning Shu smiled and said, it's not so easy to divorce. Ning Shu grinned and said, 1 night as husband and wife, 100 days of grace. Father-in-law, it's better to tear down 10 temples than to tear down a marriage. You won't let Jinwei divorce me, will you? And Jinwei's father looked at the smile on Ning Shu's face. Now he really understood why his son insisted on divorcing her. He was really crazy. She was irritable and temperamental. One moment she cried, and the next moment she was as gloomy as if she was possessed by a ghost. How tiring it was to live with such a woman. Moreover, she couldn't do anything for the family at all. It was a waste to raise her. Chapter 943. And Jinwei's father was very dissatisfied with Ning Shu's daughter-in-law. He threw the cigarette butt in his hand into the ashtray. The room was filled with thick smoke. Ning Shu turned and left. Wait a minute. And Jinwei's father called out to Ning Shu. Some things should be made clear. Logically speaking, these things should be told to you by your mother-in-law. Your mother-in-law does not do things properly. Do you know why Jinwei insisted on divorcing you? And Jinwei's father asked. Why divorce? Afraid of trouble, afraid of losing face, because you are not a good daughter-in-law. How can there not be any bumps and bruises in life? You are making a fuss just because you are wronged. You don't care about the honor of a family, and Jinwei's father said. What good will it do you to make a fuss like this? Ning Shu only grinned. There must be some benefits for him to do so. Father-in-law, I can be a good daughter-in-law, but my in-laws are not good. I can be wronged, but now that I am at a low point in my life, you are abandoning me. Then what about the grievances I have suffered in the past? Ning Shu said lightly. When things are unfair, they cry out. Anyway, you should endure. If you are wronged, you should endure. If you want a family to accept you, why can't you be wronged a little? These grievances can make the family accept you and treat you as a member. But look at what you are doing now. And Jinwei said. Whether it is on the ground, whether it is work or family, there are sacrifices to be gains. Only then can people accept you. The things you are doing make it so that we can't accept you. After getting married, you are here to contribute, to be wronged, to beg a family to accept you. Are you in a hurry? Ha ha ha. Ning Shu couldn't help but laugh. How can family compare to work? At least the grievances I suffer at work give me money to survive. But the grievances I suffer at home, I have to do endless things every day, and I have to give birth to children. These things are just for the family to accept me. Ning Shu chanted Amitabha in his heart. Fortunately, he died and became a mission enforcer, breaking away from the marriage and reproduction of ordinary humans. Sacrifice and dedication also depended on whether it was worth it, especially for people who were not blood-related to him. She was willing to meet a good person, but she met a cold-hearted person. Don't tell me there's nothing for you to eat at home. And Jinwei's father said with a sullen face. Ning Shu nodded. Yes, but it's like asking for food. It's like charity. I'll just find a job and earn some money to eat, drink, and poop. It's better than serving you guys at home. Ning Shu suddenly realized that he was destined to be alone for the rest of his life. Usually, a woman's success depended on how many men liked her, and how many men loved her. In this way, she was a complete failure. No matter how successful a woman is, no matter how successful her career is, but no man likes her, she will be mocked by other women. Look at her, so what if she earns a lot of money? No man likes her, and she can't get married. No one wants her. Ning Shu was speechless. If you think so and feel that the Yin family has wronged you, then divorce Jinwei and find a place where you don't feel wronged, and Jinwei's father said. No matter how much he said, he was still abandoning her, a useless wife. Ning Shu took a deep breath and smiled. Father-in-law, you said that I should endure the grievances, but you talked to me while I was in confinement. You want me to divorce your son? It would be strange if I could endure it. Father-in-law, smoke less. There's a pregnant woman and a baby in the family. Why don't you know how to sacrifice for the family? TSK TSK TSK. Ning Shu raised his hand and waved the smoke away, then turned around and entered the bedroom. The Yin family was tolerant and strict. Back in the bedroom, Ning Shu took out his phone and called in Jinwei. Hey, where are you? Come back. If you don't come back, I'll take the child to look for you. Chen Ning, now you even want to care about my affairs outside? And Jinwei was very angry. Chen Ning, let me tell you, I don't want to see your face. You have no right to interfere in my affairs. And Jinwei's tone was like, who do you think you are? What right do you have to interfere in my affairs? Ning Shu shrugged and hung up the phone. Who the hell cares about you? Ning Shu turned on the GPS and monitored Jinwei's current location. It showed that he was in a hotel. Hotel? Ning Shu narrowed his eyes. A place like a hotel was quite suitable for catching adulterers. Ning Shu put his phone aside and glanced at the child in the crib. Then, he began to cultivate his ultimate martial arts. Martial arts were very important. If not for his martial arts, he would have been tied up at home by the Yin family and would not see the light of day. After the suicide scene, the Yin family did not dare to do anything to her for the time being, but the news had passed. The suicide incident was quite big. Her family had received the news. Chen Ning's mother quickly came to see Ning Shu. The first thing she said was, why are you getting a divorce? You can't get a divorce. Ning Shu said indifferently, since it's like this, it's better to get a divorce. Where will you live after the divorce? Your sister-in-law said that one of your previous rooms was too small, so she renovated the 2 rooms. You know, young people nowadays like spacious and fashionable rooms, Chen Ning's mother said. Ning Shu was speechless. What a mess. What exactly is it that has to get a divorce? Can't you just bear with it? Take a step back and it'll be over. Chen Ning's mother said, how can there be nothing wrong with 2 people living together? Didn't we all come here by quarreling? There's nothing that can't be over. That's how everyone came here. Ning Shu was speechless. He felt suffocated. It was because everyone was living like that that she had to live like that. Only those who were in it would know how painful it was. Ever since she entered this mission, she had been holding back her anger. She knew that she had to endure everything. She did not know why. What was she asking for? What was she after? Ning Shu said perfunctorily, I know. I know what I'm doing. It's good that you know. You have a child. You have to think about the child. Chen Ning's mother Ning Shu said, and Jinwei is a good person. He has a stable job and doesn't have any bad habits. You still want a divorce. Don't you think you're asking for it? The shoes are not on your feet, but you only know how to say that the shoes are so beautiful. So beautiful and of good quality. What else are you not satisfied with? Think about the child. The most annoying thing was to talk about the child. The child was an adult at the age of 18 and could start a new life, but the woman had to endure until she died. It had been decades. Ning Shu was unfamiliar with Chen Ning's mother. He was probably afraid that she would become a burden to the family after the divorce. She was despised wherever she went. Because she had no value, she was treated as a burden wherever she went. Chapter 944. Ning Shu talked to Chen Ning's mother for a while. Chen Ning's mother kept telling Ning Shu not to throw a tantrum and not to get a divorce. Once they got divorced, it would be an earthquake for both families. They might become enemies if they had two different surnames. Chen Ning's mother also vaguely said that the 100,000 yuan betrothal gift from the Yin family had been used up for all kinds of electrical appliances in the house. In other words, she wanted Ning Shu to bear with it for the sake of 100,000 yuan. If the Yin family asked for 100,000 yuan as a betrothal gift, the family couldn't afford it. Ning Shu was speechless. Chen Ning, you've never let the family worry about you since you were young. You're a sensible girl. If you're wronged, look at the child. The child is still so young. Chen Ning's mother touched Ning Shu's head. Women are like this. Everyone has been like this. Ning Shu's expression was wooden as he nodded. I know. I know what to do. Your brother is getting married soon. Don't cause trouble with our son-in-law and make your brother's in-laws unhappy, Chen Ning's mother said. Ning Shu asked casually, has the date been set? We're discussing the date. When the time comes, we'll invite you and our son-in-law to come over and have a good talk with him, Chen Ning's mother said. Oh, Ning Shu replied. Chen Ning's mother brought over some eggs for Ning Shu to nourish his body. Ning Shu curled his lips. Thank you. Before Chen Ning's mother left, she told Ning Shu not to have any conflicts with her son-in-law. Ning Shu hummed insincerely. As for the original owner's brother's wedding, Ning Shu hadn't decided whether to go. Ning Shu hadn't met Chen Ning's brother, but he felt that he was quite indifferent. He didn't come to see his sister after she gave birth and used her sister's betrothal gift money to decorate and get a wife. Sigh. It seemed that this was basically the life of a woman nowadays. Ning Shu shrugged and felt tired, so he lay on the bed to rest. As for her family, Ning Shu didn't care. She was definitely going to get a divorce. Did he really think that she wanted to live with An Jinwei? The person who showed her trump card first was likely to lose. Because of the law, An Jinwei couldn't get a divorce within a year. Even if he brought it up, the court wouldn't accept it. She now had the upper hand. Ning Shu, who was sleeping, was woken up by a noise. He opened his eyes and saw An Jinwei taking clothes from the wardrobe and putting them in a box. An Jinwei glanced at Ning Shu, his face incomparably cold and annoyed. He put his tie, shirt, and suit jacket into the box. Ning Shu asked, "Where are you going?" "I won't be living at home anymore." "Tell me when you've decided to divorce," An Jinwei said coldly. Ning Shu didn't care. "Who cares where you are? You use this kind of method, and you use this kind of indifferent way to torture people." Ning Shu didn't say a word. He just looked at the baby in the crib. An Jinwei was angered to death by Ning Shu's cold attitude. In An Jinwei's heart, when he was about to leave home, the other party should be in fear and trepidation to keep him and beg him not to leave. What did he want such a woman for? "Chen Ning, I'll tell you directly. I'm definitely going to divorce you." An Jinwei said, "As long as we live apart for a long time, I may also file for divorce with the court. Our relationship is broken." Broken relationship? What kind of relationship was that? How could it be broken? Ning Shu nodded. "I see. Then I wish you all the best. It would be best if you moved out. No one would serve you tea, cook for you, and wash for you. How long would your salary last?" An Jinwei took a deep breath. "Don't challenge my patience. Sooner or later, I'll kick you out of this house." An Jinwei slammed the lid on the box and left with it in his hand. And Jinwei's mother grabbed him and refused to let him go. She begged Jinwei not to move out and scolded Ning Shu. And Jinwei's mother's eyes were filled with tears. And Jinwei had never left home. She would be very worried if he went out. And Jinwei insisted on leaving. He pulled away Jinwei's mother's hand and left with the box. And Jinwei's mother rushed to Ning Shu's room and looked at Ning Shu with hatred. Who do you think you are? What right do you have to make Jinwei leave? Ning Shu held the child in his arms and covered the child's ears so that he would not be frightened by Jinwei's mother's hoarse voice. Even if someone were to leave, it would be a woman like you. Chen Ning, you've grown up. Find Jinwei for me. And Jinwei's mother, Ning Shu, roared, her face full of disgust. Ning Shu said, his legs are on his body. I can't stop him from going anywhere. Can I cut off his legs? You're still quibbling. And Jinwei's mother, Ning Shu, shouted, go find him, even if you have to kneel and beg him to come back. Ning Shu was expressionless. I'm in confinement. You want me to go out and find him? Everything was blamed on her, and he had to kneel and beg her to come back. What kind of person was he? Ning Shu held the child and ignored Jinwei's mother. And Jinwei's mother kept nagging and scolding Ning Shu. She said all kinds of unpleasant things. Granny, you're scolding me like this. I feel so bad. Ning Shu grinned at Jinwei's mother, showing his white teeth. Ning Shu carried the child out of bed. And Jinwei's mother was so scared that her face turned pale. She turned and quickly walked out of the room. Ning Shu sneered and followed him out of the room. He said to Jinwei's mother, Granny, why are you running? I haven't finished talking to you. I want to drink some radish soup tonight. Stewed radish with pork ribs. Go eat shit. You pissed Jinwei off and still have the mood to eat. Dream on. And Jinwei's mother rushed into the kitchen and took a kitchen knife. Don't think that I'm afraid of you. I'm afraid of you just because you're crazy. You tortured my son to such a state and still have the face to ask for food. Just because you have a problem, you want others to spoil you. If you want to die together, then die together. Ning Shu tilted his head and said, it's disgraceful for me to ask for food. Your son left on his own. What does it have to do with me? Don't think that I'm afraid of you just because you have a knife in your hand. Anyway, I don't want to live anymore. Then let's die together. Ning Shu said without a care. If you didn't make Jinwei unhappy, if you didn't make him feel bad in this house, why would he leave? And Jinwei's mother's eyes were red. He never left home. It's all because of you. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. Whether he left home or not has nothing to do with me. You're a black-hearted woman. You don't care about your husband at all. You only want to live a happy life. The Yin family has 8 generations of bad luck to marry a woman like you. And Jinwei's mother raised her hand and patted her knee. You can't carry on the Yin family's ancestral line and give birth to a girl. Ning Shu was expressionless. You don't believe in Yin. You keep talking about Yin family all day long. TSK, tisk, what are you doing? You really can't rest for a minute. And Jinwei's father, who was smoking on the balcony, came in and saw the confrontation between the mother and daughter-in-law. Put down the knife. Chapter 945. And Jinwei's father was irritated by the messy atmosphere in the house. He was very dissatisfied with his wife and Ning Shu. Get out of here if you continue to make a fuss. Why are you yelling at me? My son is gone. Can't I say a few words? And Jinwei's mother threw the kitchen knife on the ground with a clang. She covered her face and ran into the room crying. And Jinwei's father's face was even darker. He looked at Ning Shu who was holding the child and said in a low voice with resentment, "Are you satisfied now? You'll only be happy if you make this house a mess. Why should I be happy? Why should I be unhappy? I'm just hungry after confinement and want to eat something, Ning Shu said indifferently. My mother-in-law wants to take the kitchen knife and die with me. I can't cook for myself right now. Why do you have to make something for yourself? For the sake of the family, you can't even bear this little grievance. Why do you have to make a fuss like this? Ning Shu shook his head and entered the bedroom with a helpless expression. He didn't even look at his father-in-law's face. Ning Shu returned to the room and closed the door. After feeding the child, he sat cross-legged on the bed and cultivated. His wounds were almost healed now. The qi gene he cultivated was used to strengthen his body or to inject some qi gene into the child. Since he was discharged from the hospital, the child hadn't been sick, which saved Ning Shu a lot of trouble. While cultivating, Ning Shu vaguely heard the sound of quarreling in the opposite room. It was obviously Jinwei's parents arguing. He vaguely heard Jinwei's mother's sharp voice. I've worked so hard for this family, now I have to take care of my wife. Damn old man, you're ruining me like this. Ning Shu pursed his lips. You've worked so hard for the Yin family, so now you think it's Chen Ning's turn. It seemed that the Yin family had always been like this. Jinwei's mother was a daughter-in-law who became a mother-in-law. Ning Shu closed his eyes and continued to cultivate, excluding the noise from the outside world. He didn't know how long he cultivated, but Ning Shu's cultivation was interrupted by a broken sound. Jinwei's father scolded, "Look at yourself. Why should I serve a daughter-in-law? Isn't it enough for me to serve you and your father? Now I have to serve that woman." Jinwei's mother roared. Back then, I gave birth to Jinwei as my first child. It was a boy, and he wasn't that delicate. I had to serve him. I'm a mother-in-law, a mother-in-law. Ning Shu opened the door and saw Jinwei's father coming out. There were scratches on his face. It was obvious that his wife had scratched him. Jinwei's father glanced at Ning Shu and left. Ning Shu glanced at the opposite bedroom and saw Jinwei's mother sitting on the bed, crying. Ning Shu felt that it was really boring. What era was this? He felt that the Yin family was still a feudal family. Jinwei's mother had suffered when she was young. Now that she had a daughter-in-law, she felt that her daughter-in-law should do everything and take care of the family. He should enjoy it and find a sense of superiority from his wife. Ning Shu closed the door and continued to cultivate. He could do whatever he wanted. It didn't matter if the family blew up. Stability and peace relied on people's sacrifices and unspoken rules. Once someone was unhappy and wanted to break the rules, they would definitely not be able to maintain peace and stability. Jinwei's father went out and still hadn't returned when it was dark. Originally, Jinwei's mother was quite angry, but after waiting for so long, she panicked and called everywhere to ask. Jinwei's mother was so anxious that tears came down her face. She sat in the living room and cried. Her son and husband had left. What should she do? It's all your fault. It's all because of you. You're such a troublemaker. Since you were born, the Yin family has never had a comfortable day. You're such a troublemaker. Jinwei's mother pointed at Ning Shu and scolded her. As she scolded, she burst into tears. Ning Shu was expressionless. What was there to cry about? How could such a big person get lost? Jinwei's mother had been tortured to the point of masochism. Jinwei's father didn't treat her well, but she couldn't leave him. This father and son pair were very good at using emotional violence. Just like now, they didn't say anything and ran away on their own. They didn't return home when it was dark. They deliberately made you anxious and deliberately tortured you. Jinwei's mother was worried that something had happened to him, but she was also worried that he had climbed into a woman's bed. She paced around the living room anxiously. Ning Shu wasn't in the mood to quarrel with Jinwei's mother. He closed the door and clicked on the GPS to see where Jinwei was. When he had nothing to do, he still had to go around the hotel. Maybe something would happen. Chen Ning, open the door. And Jinwei's mother knocked hard on the door. Ning Shu opened the door and asked, "Is the radish stewed pork ribs ready?" "Eat, eat, you only know how to eat." And Jinwei's mother reached out and grabbed Ning Shu's arm. She shouted angrily, "Come with me to find your father-in-law. He's old. He's not home so late. Is he in danger?" Ning Shu pried in Jinwei's mother's hand away. "It's cold at night. I'm in confinement. Confinement is more important than being in confinement. Chen Ning, I've never seen a woman as cruel as you." And Jinwei's mother glared fiercely at Ning Shu. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. He's not a 3-year-old child. How could anything happen to him? I called all his friends in the neighborhood. They said he didn't go over. His face is covered in bruises because of you. How could he go to his friend's house? The Yin family's men were all very prideful. They puffed themselves up at their own cost. He's probably with your son now. When Ning Shu checked the GPS, he found 2 red dots. They were always together. It was probably in Jinwei's father. Ning Shu didn't buy it at all. These people had nothing to do with him. Ning Shu wouldn't even blink if they died in front of him. Because he didn't care, there was no reaction. These people's cold violence could only be used on people who cared about them. When Jinwei heard Ning Shu's words, she immediately called him. She probably knew where her husband was. She let out a long breath and sat on the sofa. Ning Shu looked at her as if the sky was falling. Now, he relaxed as if his spirit had been sucked out. She was just another person who was enslaved by the Yin family. She still had to feel superior in front of her daughter-in-law. Ning Shu went to the kitchen to get something to eat. After eating, he closed the door and ignored everything. Ning Shu opened the GPS again and found that the 2 red dots were both there. It seemed that the father and son were really together. For the next few days, the father and son slept in the hotel. And Jinwei's mother seemed very frustrated when her husband didn't come home. She called her husband, but he hung up immediately. And Jinwei's mother's eyes turned red. Ning Shu didn't feel anything. He ate, slept, and cultivated every day. His body was very strong. Usually, in such a situation, the first to collapse was the weak person. And Jinwei's mother personally went to the hotel to find her husband. Chapter 946. She didn't know how Jinwei's mother managed to get her husband to come back. She probably just pretended to be weak and said nice things. As soon as Jinwei's mother got home, she said to Ning Shu, "Go and get Jinwei back. Do you know how hard Jinwei is living in the hotel? No one washes his clothes. He spends so much money and doesn't eat well," and Jinwei's mother roared at Ning Shu. "He has a family. If he stays in a hotel, others will only say that you are not a qualified wife." Ning Shu glanced at Jinwei's father. "If you can get your father-in-law back, why didn't you get your son back? Why do you have to wait for me to get him back? Do you want me to kneel and kowtow like an emperor? It's useless even if you go. Jinwei said that he will come back when you get divorced," and Jinwei's father said coldly and turned to the door. "Where are you going?" And Jinwei's mother asked quickly. "It's annoying to stay at home. I'm going out to play chess with them." And Jinwei's father walked away with his hands behind his back. "Come back early for lunch." And Jinwei's mother glanced at Ning Shu. She was probably afraid that her husband would leave in anger again. She didn't dare to make a fuss with Ning Shu and went to the kitchen to prepare lunch. Ning Shu went back to the room and turned on the GPS. He found something interesting. The red dot that represented Jinwei was followed by another red dot. The two of them were like shadows. They went to the restaurant, the movie theater, and basically went to the places where couples played. Ning Shu carried the child on his back and prepared to go to the hotel to see what An Jinwei was doing. "Where are you going?" An Jinwei's mother looked at Ning Shu warily. She was afraid that Ning Shu would run to the top floor and jump off again. Ning Shu said, "Aren't you going to get An Jinwei back?" "I'm going to kneel and kowtow." "Really?" Ning Shu carried the child and left. Ning Shu arrived at the hotel according to the GPS. It wasn't dark yet, and An Jinwei hadn't returned to the hotel yet. Ning Shu waited in the convenience store opposite the hotel and bought some food. When the evening lights came on, Ning Shu found out from the GPS that An Jinwei was heading towards the hotel. Ning Shu saw An Jinwei enter the hotel with a woman holding his arm. Ning Shu followed him into the hotel. Because of the GPS, he didn't need to ask the front desk where An Jinwei's room was. However, Ning Shu was standing at the door of the guest room. Without the key, there was no way to enter. He didn't know if the two of them had gotten to the point. She should take a shower and prepare the atmosphere. No matter what, she had to wait for the two of them to take off their clothes and change into their pajamas. Ning Shu waited at the door. After about 10 minutes, Ning Shu pressed the doorbell and said, "Sir, your red wine is here." In the room, the two of them were wearing bathrobes after taking a shower. The woman was lying seductively on the bed. An Jinwei was about to do something when he heard the hotel waiter bringing the red wine. He was a little puzzled. He didn't order red wine. An Jinwei opened the door and was stunned to see Ning Shu holding the phone. He was about to close the door when Ning Shu kicked the door and entered the room. "What are you doing here? Get out." An Jinwei dragged Ning Shu out of the room. Ning Shu shook off An Jinwei's hand and held the phone to record the woman on the bed. The woman on the bed immediately pulled the loose bathrobe to cover her body. She lowered her head and covered her face with her hair before running out of the room. Ning Shu's voice was inexplicably shocked. "An Jinwei, you're calling a prostitute and not paying? Who told you to record? Give me the phone." An Jinwei's face darkened. He reached out to grab Ning Shu's phone. Ning Shu put the phone in his bag and ran out of the room without saying anything to An Jinwei. An Jinwei wanted to chase after Ning Shu, but he was wearing a bathrobe and there was nothing inside. An Jinwei gritted his teeth and put on his clothes. He casually stuffed the clothes into the suitcase and was ready to check out and go home. After being recorded that kind of video, An Jinwei wanted to prevent it from being leaked. An Jinwei wanted to kill this crazy woman. How dare she? Ning Shu took her phone and saved the video in her email. Then, she went back. "I knew you couldn't call Jinwei back." An Jinwei's mother said in disdain when she saw Ning Shu coming back alone. Ning Shu smiled. Maybe he will come back later. She had the evidence of An Jinwei's affair in her hands. It would be strange if An Jinwei could sit still. In just half an hour, An Jinwei rushed back. As soon as he entered the room, he lifted the suitcase and threw it at Ning Shu. His face was full of anger and disgust. Ning Shu wouldn't stand there stupidly and let the suitcase hit him. He dodged it at once. The suitcase hit the ground with a bang and the small wheel fell off. An Jinwei's sudden action made the two elders look at each other. An Jinwei's mother quickly asked, "What's wrong with you? Ask her what she did." An Jinwei was so angry that his face turned blue. He pointed at Ning Shu. "Don't think you can threaten me with that kind of video." "What is it?" An Jinwei's father asked with a frown. Ning Shu took out his mobile phone and played what he had filmed. "Oh, he's talking about this." Ning Shu said bitterly, "You find other women. I feel so bad. How can you do this to me? Why can't I find other women? You are pregnant and I need relief." An Jinwei said with a cold face. An Jinwei's father asked, "Who is this woman? I just met her online." Meeting her won't hurt the family, and Jinwei said. The next day, we will go our separate ways, and Jinwei said lightly. Ning Shu understood. It was an online hookup. He didn't know if this was in Jinwei's first time or if it had been many times. Jinwei, what kind of woman is she? And Jinwei's mother asked politely. She had the intention of looking for a daughter-in-law. I won't bring such a woman home. And Jinwei said, playing with that kind of woman is enough. It's just to relieve each other's loneliness. Find a woman, find a good woman, and Jinwei said. Ning Shu was speechless. So what are men like? They want to sleep with other people's wives and girlfriends, but they also want their girlfriends and wives to be virgins. That's how it should be. Marry a virtuous wife. That kind of woman will only make the house a mess. And Jinwei's father nodded and said. Ning Shu, didn't Jinwei do something good? Shouldn't the main point be that he cheated? Ning Shu coughed. And Jinwei, you are not loyal to your marriage. I am not loyal. You can divorce me. And Jinwei said coldly. Ning Shu sneered. Chen Ning, if you really have a backbone and think that I betrayed you, divorce me. Chapter 947. If you can't stand it, I'll definitely agree to divorce you. And Jinwei stared at Ning Shu with disdain. Obviously, he thought that Ning Shu didn't have the courage to divorce him. Ning Shu thought, damn, I'm so bad-tempered. I've never seen an affair so self-righteous. Do you think you can seize the opportunity to divorce me? Ning Shu lifted her foot and stepped on the sofa expressionlessly. She had just recorded such shameless words. She didn't know what kind of comments it would cause on the internet. What are you talking about? You want to divorce me? Ning Shu looked indifferent. Say it again. Who do you want to divorce? Ning Shu bent down and picked up an apple. She tossed it in her hand and was about to throw it at Jinwei. And Jinwei's eyes followed the rise and fall of the apple. He couldn't help but move to the side and yell at Ning Shu with a sullen face, Chen Ning, are you going crazy again? Put it down. I'm just sad that you want to divorce me. I can endure anything. Please don't divorce me. Ning Shu begged, but her face was gloomy, as if she was about to start a fight. Chen Ning, aren't you a bitch? Why don't you divorce me? Anyway, I must divorce you. And Jinwei looked particularly disdainful. Who are you calling a bitch? Ning Shu tilted her head and looked at Jinwei. The apple was directly thrown at Jinwei. And Jinwei had been prepared for Ning Shu. Although he dodged, he was still hit. And Jinwei hissed. He felt as if he had been hit by a stone. It was burning. Before he could breathe a sigh of relief, apples hit him one after another. He suddenly cried out in pain. Chen Ning, what are you doing? When Jinwei's mother saw that her son had been beaten, she was so angry that her face turned green. Her son couldn't even bear to lift a finger, and was beaten by this crazy woman one after another. And Jinwei's mother had long wanted to tear this woman apart. And Jinwei's mother stretched out her hand to hit Ning Shu, but Ning Shu dodged in a flash. You still dare to hide? And Jinwei's mother's eyes widened. Her eyes were bloodshot as she ferociously looked at Ning Shu. Why are you blaming me when you can't hit me? How can you be so unreasonable? Ning Shu said indifferently. Chen Ning, let's talk things out. Don't get physical, and Jinwei's father said sternly. Ning Shu lightly said, I'm already being very polite by not cutting off his manhood. Maybe I'll go crazy and cut off his manhood. I heard that it's not illegal for a mental patient to kill someone. I have severe postpartum depression, and I'm often in a trance. Even though I'm high up, it's as if I'm walking on flat ground. Last time in the bathroom, I felt like I was tied up inside. I couldn't get out no matter how hard I tried. I couldn't shout, so all I could do was bang my head against the wall, Ning Shu said indifferently. I think I'm already crazy. You. And Jinwei looked at Ning Shu in anger. He couldn't help but clamp his legs together, afraid that Ning Shu would cut off his life grid. Even those who didn't care about their lives were afraid of lunatics. Who knew what lunatics would do? And Jinwei coughed and tried his best to soften his voice. Chen Ning, can we have a good talk? There's no point in arguing like this. Then talk to me properly. I can't hear anything reasonable from you. Cheating is so natural. If I hear it, I'll beat you up once. Ning Shu sat on the sofa and pointed at the apple on the ground. Wash an apple for me. I'm thirsty. The Yin family stood motionless. Ning Shu pointed at the apple on the ground again. Wash it. What are you waiting for? Didn't you say you wanted to have a good talk? I want to eat an apple now. Wash it for me. Ning Shu propped his chin up and looked at Jinwei. Hurry up. Go wash one, Jinwei's father said to his wife. Wash one. Jinwei's mother pursed her lips and bent down to pick up the apple. Seriously, you think you're the Empress Dowager? Let my dear wash one for me. Ning Shu pointed at Jinwei. Go wash it. I've always been the one serving you. Today, it's your turn to serve me. Ning Shu's expression changed. Why? Aren't you washing it? Jinwei took a deep breath, took the apple from his mother's hand, and went to the kitchen to wash it. Wash it clean. If you don't wash it clean, I won't eat it. If I don't eat it, there's no way to have a good talk. Ning Shu propped his chin up and said lazily. Jinwei washed the apple and handed it to Ning Shu. Ning Shu glanced at it. There's water. Jinwei took out a piece of paper, wiped the water on the apple, and handed it to Ning Shu. Ning Shu pointed his fingers, took the apple, and began to chew. Can you talk now? Jinwei said. Before we talk, give me the video. I'm eating an apple. Ning Shu said indifferently. The Yin family stared at Ning Shu eating the apple alone. Jinwei's mother stared at Ning Shu, her eyes almost popping out. Ning Shu handed the apple core to Jinwei. What now? Jinwei asked with a look of displeasure. You can't expect me to talk with the apple core. Ning Shu reached out to Jinwei. Throw it away. Jinwei was so angry that he let out a long breath. He took the apple core from Ning Shu's hand and threw it into the trash can. He sat opposite Ning Shu and bared his teeth. The place where the apple hit his body was red and swollen, and it was burning. Then let's talk. Jinwei looked at Ning Shu and said, Do you really want to live like this with me? Why can't we live like this? Because I'm sick now, and you want to divorce me. Ning Shu propped his chin up and said, In order to avoid trouble, you want to get rid of me. You can't dump me like this. Then what do you want? The Yin family doesn't want a daughter-in-law like you. You're an unqualified daughter-in-law. Jinwei's mother said loudly, How can you shamelessly stay in this family? Ning Shu ignored the noisy mother-in-law and glanced at the Yin family's father and son. He said indifferently, Drag it out as long as you can. Anyway, you can't get a divorce within a year. Moreover, you cheated and are the wrong party in the marriage. What do you think will happen in court? Ning Shu raised his phone. If I hand this phone to the judge and get a divorce because of cheating, I don't know what your colleagues will think of you. Are you threatening me? Jinwei said with a cold face. Ning Shu nodded. I'm threatening you. Then what do you want? What do you want? Jinwei looked at the phone in Ning Shu's hand. Under certain conditions, I can satisfy you. It's not impossible for me to get a divorce. If you want the things in the phone, it depends on what price you can offer. It has to be a price that I'm satisfied with. Take note, this is something you bought, so I set the price, Ning Shu said casually. Chapter 948. As Ning Shu spoke, she dug at her fingernails, then turned them over to look at her hands. She clicked her tongue and said, "It's been less than 2 years since I got married, but my face has turned yellow, my hands have become rough, and my waist and back are aching. I don't want to hear this. What do you want? How much do you want?" And Jin Wei said impatiently. "Look at the price you're offering." Ning Shu said. $20,000. And Jin Wei stretched out 2 fingers. Ning Shu. Sigh. Ning Shu flicked his fingernails, 200,000, and the child will be raised by you. Otherwise, we won't divorce. 200,000. Why don't you go to heaven? And Jin Wei's mother jumped up in fright, getting married and getting divorced for 200,000? You're cheating. You're leaving and leaving the child behind. You want to take 200,000 and have fun? Dream on. And Jin Wei's mother pointed at Ning Shu, "Do you think you're Yang Yuhuan? You can sell it for 200,000. Ning Shu dug his ears. How many times do I have to say it? I'm selling something. If you buy your son's reputation again, you'll piss me off. Tomorrow, I'll post this video online and send it to your colleague's mailbox. Oh right, after the divorce, you still want to get married. After you get married, you have to treat my daughter well. Otherwise, I'll come back. I'll make everyone restless." Ning Shu said with a smile. And Jin Wei was angered by Ning Shu to the point that his chest violently heaved up and down. His face was ashen as he said in disgust, "You're such a disgusting woman. You can even abandon your own flesh and blood. Hypocritical and vain. Why did I marry you in the first place? Don't tell me I don't want to start over. It's not good for me to marry again with a burden. Besides, Nan Nan is your family's blood." Ning Shu said indifferently. He was speechless in his heart. He couldn't even fulfill his responsibility as a father, yet he wanted a woman to show maternal love and love for her child. If she didn't love her child, then she wasn't a good woman. If a man had to choose between a house and a child, he would definitely choose the house. The child would be given birth to by a woman. How expensive would the house be? Ning Shu played with his phone. "If you hesitate any longer, I'm going to release the video. Jin Wei, come here. I have something to tell you." And Jin Wei's mother tugged at her son's clothes. And Jin Wei followed Jin Wei's mother to the balcony. And Jin Wei's mother said in a low voice, "Jin Wei, you can't let that girl stay. If you really divorce Chen Ning, you'll definitely get married again. With such a girl around, the girl won't be willing to be a stepmother. Give this girl to Chen Ning. Also, 200,000 yuan is too much. She still wants 200,000 yuan. I can't give it to her. I definitely can't give it to her." When Jin Wei's mother said 200,000 yuan, her face trembled with pain. "I understand." And Jin Wei nodded. He walked into the living room and sat on the sofa. Ning Shu said, "I'll give you 50,000. The child is yours. It seems that there's no need to talk about it anymore." Ning Shu stood up and stretched. "Actually, I don't want to divorce. As for your infidelity, I can tolerate it. Let's raise Nan Nan well and let her have a happy family. How about that? By the way, this video. If you have a one-night stand next time, I'll directly post it on the community forum. You'll be pointed at as soon as you go out." Ning Shu and Jin Wei smiled gently and turned to go back to the room to rest. "Wait a minute. Since you're not satisfied, I can still talk about it." And Jin Wei said. Ning Shu said impatiently, "Don't you understand human language? I'm selling things. You're buying things. You're giving a beggar so little money. I won't sell at the price you offered." Also, this child is your family's blood. What do you mean by insisting that I raise her? Don't be so high and mighty. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. Anyway, I'm sick now. I'll rely on you for as long as I can. By the way, I won't do housework in the future. Maybe I'll go crazy and pour hot oil on your face. Ning Shu said with a smile. Sit down. Business is all about talking. Since you're not satisfied with the price, we'll just increase it. And Jinwei's father stared at Ning Shu and said. Ning Shu tilted his head and sat down. I want 200,000. Not a penny less. The child is yours. 80,000. The child is yours. And Jinwei said, we won't take this child. This child will affect my remarriage. Ning Shu was not surprised that the Yin family did not want the child. The child was not welcome from birth. Ning Shu was definitely going to take the child away. He could imagine how the child would be treated in the future if he stayed. Ning Shu shook her head. No, 200,000. I can't have the child. I want to pursue my own happiness. The child might affect your remarriage, but does that mean it will affect mine? Will the man I marry in the future be willing to raise someone else's child? After all, this child belongs to your family. If I raise a child, what will I do? Ning Shu's face was full of dissatisfaction. I don't want this child. You're her mother. Why don't you want it? And Jinwei's mother looked at Ning Shu with eyes full of disdain. You're her grandparents. You're still her father. Why don't you raise her? Ning Shu rolled his eyes. 100,000. The child is yours. Then you have to give me the video. And Jinwei said, this is my bottom line. If you don't agree, then I'll wait for a year and divorce you. Then you won't get anything. Ning Shu shrugged indifferently. It'll only take half a minute to upload this video to the community forum. If I insist on not divorcing and tolerate your mistakes and your infidelity, the judge won't divorce us. And Jinwei took a deep breath and exhaled deeply. Ning Shu's shamelessness had probably angered him to the point of being speechless. Chen Ning, don't be so ruthless. We'll meet again in the future, and Jinwei's father said. Ning Shu looked surprised. How can we meet again in the future? We're enemies now. How can we be friends in the future? It's normal that we don't talk to each other. Then what do you want? And Jinwei pulled his tie irritably. 200,000 is impossible. Chen Ning, don't push me too far. 150,000. The child is yours. And Jinwei said, this is my last price. Since you agree, then forget it. I can only think of other ways. I can't guarantee what will happen. Ning Shu glanced at the Yin family's faces. This was probably their bottom line. Ning Shu curled his lips. 180,000. I don't want the child. 150,000. The child is yours, and Jinwei said. Ning Shu looked annoyed. 150,000. I don't want the child. If you don't want the child, then give the child to me. Chapter 949. Anyway, the price has been set, 150,000. Now it's the problem of ownership of the child. And family doesn't want children, and Ning Shu doesn't want children. Now the child is being kicked around like a ball, and they don't want it. 150,000, I'll give you the child. Tomorrow morning, we'll get the divorce certificate together. And Jinwei said. I can't. I'll get the divorce certificate first. If you don't give me the money and give me the child back, who will I cry to? Ning Shu rolled his eyes. Don't you still have my video? And Jinwei rubbed his eyebrows and said. Ning Shu shook his head. Sometimes it's terrible when people are shameless. If you divorce first, you won't care about this video at all. What if I give you the money and you don't divorce? And Jinwei said. As long as you give me the money, I'll definitely divorce you and give you the memory card immediately. Ning Shu said. And Jinwei rubbed his forehead. If you lie to me, I'll go to your mother's house to make trouble. Anyway, no one can live in peace. Okay, anyway, the monk can run but the temple can't run. Ning Shu yawned. Then tomorrow we'll go to the bank to transfer the money. I'm going to sleep first. Ning Shu turned his head and said, don't expect to steal my cell phone at night. There's a fruit knife under my pillow. If I stab someone when I'm in a trance, I may not be able to guarantee what will happen. Good night, have a good sleep and have a good dream. Ning Shu said with a sweet smile. Ning Shu took the child back to the room. Looking at the sleeping child, he sighed. He didn't know anything about the child. Ning Shu put the child on the crib and began to sit cross-legged on the bed to cultivate. He cultivated until the next morning. Ning Shu changed the baby's diaper, fed him milk, carried him on his back and left the bedroom. And family was sitting at the dining table early in the morning. There were fried dough sticks, soy milk and porridge on the table. Ning Shu sat down and ate breakfast. The family members didn't look too good. It was obvious that they hadn't slept much all night. And Jinwei's mother looked at Ning Shu with eyes as sharp as knives. Hearing the sound of Ning Shu eating porridge, she couldn't help but say, the family has 8 lifetimes of bad luck to have a daughter-in-law like you. Yes, you must have done too many immoral things in your previous lives. Ning Shu said with a smile, if I don't want a child, then you really don't want this child. This is the blood of your family. Who wants this girl? Ever since she was born, the family hasn't lived a good life. They haven't lived a peaceful life. She's a jinx, a debt collector. And Jinwei's mother said in disgust. Ning Shu pursed his lips. Fortunately, this child didn't know anything now. If the child could remember and be sensible, who knew how he would feel after hearing this? What era was this? Still so patriarchal. And family was really a suffocating place. There was no warmth of family, only indifference and a utilitarian hierarchy. If you don't want her, then give her to me. Ning Shu was very dissatisfied and said to Jinwei, we'll transfer the money to the bank later. After breakfast, the family went out. When they arrived at the bank, Jinwei said, if you lie to me, I will never forgive you. One hand over the money, one hand over the goods. Ning Shu said lightly, I don't have a job. I have to support my children. I need money very much. Why would I lie to you? And Jinwei took a deep breath and asked Ning Shu for the bank account number. He went to the counter to transfer the money. Ning Shu sat on the chair and waited. A few minutes later, Ning Shu received a text message from the bank. Her card already had 150,000 yuan. Give me the thing. And Jinwei reached out to Ning Shu. Ning Shu gave the phone to Jinwei. I'm not sure if you have a backup. And Jinwei said. I'll give you the phone. Ning Shu gave the phone to Jinwei. And Jinwei took the phone and glanced at Ning Shu. His fingers slid over and over again before he gave the phone to Ning Shu. Go to the Civil Affairs Bureau. And Jinwei said coldly. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. When the two arrived at the Civil Affairs Bureau, Jinwei seemed to be afraid that Ning Shu would go back on his word and use the fastest speed to get the divorce certificate. Ning Shu also made herself Nanan's guardian and signed the document. From then on, Nan was her child and had nothing to do with family. After leaving the Civil Affairs Bureau, Jinwei let out a sigh of relief. Ning Shu also let out a sigh of relief in his heart. To be able to get such a result was not easy. Now go home and pack up your things. Hurry and leave my house. And Jinwei directly got into the car and left without even looking at Ning Shu. Ning Shu's face was indifferent. He first found a hotel to settle down. Ning Shu first went to book a room and then slowly went home. As soon as she got home, Ning Shu saw the clothes in the living room piled up in a mess. The suitcase was thrown on the floor, and Jinwei's mother was sitting on the sofa with a condescending look on her face. "Get out of my house after you took the money." Ning Shu was expressionless. "Who did this to my clothes? This makes me very unhappy. When I'm unhappy, I can't guarantee what I do. When I go crazy, even I'm afraid of myself. Tidy up my clothes and put them in the suitcase. Otherwise, I'll smash all the pots and pans in your house today." Ning Shu was eager to try. And Jinwei's mother's face darkened. She wanted to show off her might. She didn't expect this woman to be so arrogant when she was about to be kicked out. "Pack it up for her." And Jinwei's father impatiently said to his wife, "Don't make trouble." And Jinwei's mother could only fold the messy clothes and put them in the box. She was very dissatisfied. In front of outsiders, she didn't know how to give her face. "Things are packed. You should hurry up and leave. And family can't keep a big Buddha like you." And Jinwei's father said, "Yes, it can't accommodate me. My future is the sea of stars, not the pot." Ning Shu sat on the sofa, picked up an apple, and wiped it on her clothes. Then, she began to chew on it. And Jinwei's father looked at Ning Shu's arrogant appearance. "As an elder, I'll tell you. With your character, no matter where you go, you won't have a good life. You think you'll have a good life after leaving in family?" "Yes, I think I'll have a good life after leaving in family." Ning Shu nodded. "At least I don't have to serve your family. Don't talk to me about what a daughter-in-law should do. I don't buy it now. In this society, I can't make a living. I have to live like a slave under your hands." Ning Shu threw the apple core into the trash can. And Jinwei's father's face was cold. "Then I'd like to see which family can tolerate your unforgiving temper." Chapter 950. I also opened my eyes wide to see what kind of daughter-in-law you can find. She has no complaints and is willing to work hard without complaint. Ning Shu said with a smile, "Don't treat women as fools. Anyway, it's not a daughter-in-law like you." And Jinwei's mother closed the box and threw it to Ning Shu. "Take it and get out." Ning Shu stood up and went out with the box. And Jinwei's mother followed behind Ning Shu and waited until Ning Shu went out. "Get out." Then she slammed the door. Ning Shu smiled and put the box on the ground. Then she banged on the door and wailed, "Grandma, don't drive me away. Please, I will control my temper in the future. My depression will definitely be cured. Grandma, don't drive us away. Where should we go?" Ning Shu banged on the door with all her might, wailing at the top of her lungs, "I'll definitely recover. I don't need to take any medicine for my illness. It won't cost a lot of money. I just need some time to adjust. Grandma, husband, you can't abandon me and the child." Ning Shu's crying and knocking on the door woke up the child on her back. The child also wailed. The neighbor opposite opened the door and saw Ning Shu leaning on the door with tears and snot on her face. They asked, "Mrs. N, what's wrong with you? My husband doesn't want us anymore. He wants to divorce me. I don't know where the child and I are going." Ning Shu banged on the door. "Grandma, please, let us in. Chen Ning, you are so shameless. You have already divorced Jinwei. Why are you still here? You should get out of here after taking the money. Isn't 150,000 yuan enough for you?" And Jinwei's mother opened the door and saw that the corridor was full of onlookers. Ning Su cried and said, "Grandma, don't drive us away. I'm sick and can't take care of the child. Please. Get out. I've never seen a woman as shameless as you. And Jinwei's mother was so angry that her whole body trembled. She slammed the door. Ning Shu coaxed the crying child as he carried the suitcase away. As he walked, he sobbed softly and wiped away his tears. After leaving the neighborhood, Ning Shu hailed a taxi and went to the hotel. Ning Shu put the child on the bed, took a bath, and then hugged the child to sleep. Not sleeping for a long time was unbearable. Although it was possible to cultivate, not sleeping all the time would cause a person's spirit to collapse. The biological clock of humans was to work at sunrise and rest at sunset. Finally, they could have a good sleep. Ning Shu and his child slept until the next morning. After waking up, Ning Shu turned on his phone and saw a lot of missed calls from Chen Ning's mother. It seemed that she knew about her divorce. Ning Shu took the child out of the hotel and bought some breakfast, as well as some health supplements and gifts, before she planned to return to her mother's home. Ning Shu pressed the doorbell. Chen Ning's mother opened the door and saw Ning Shu. She immediately pulled Ning Shu in angrily. What did I tell you before? In the end, you didn't even say a word to your family before getting a divorce. You even brought a child with you. Chen Ning's mother said angrily. I told you, and Jinwei's family is quite well off. He has a job and a stable job. He also has various subsidies every month. After calculating everything, his monthly salary is not small. He will have a retirement salary in the future, and he is the only son. In the future, the An family will be his and yours. Chen Ning's mother was very angry. You didn't tell me or your father about this. Women are not popular when they get divorced. Women are the ones who suffer when they get divorced. Moreover, you have a child. Are you crazy? Ning Shu listened to Chen Ning's mother's nagging indifferently and didn't say a word. Anyway, she was complaining about her divorce. Chen Ning's brother grabbed his messy hair and walked out of the room in flip-flops. He looked like he hadn't woken up yet. When he saw Ning Shu, he called her sister and then sat down at the table to eat breakfast. Sister, I heard that you got divorced. Brother-in-law gave you 150,000 yuan, Chen Ning's brother, Ning Shu, asked. Ning Shu said indifferently, that's not true. It's just the An family pretending to be rich, 150,000. Is there really 150,000 yuan? Chen Ning's mother, Ning Shu, asked. Then she said, where did you go last night? I called you all night. I was so worried. I stayed in a hotel. I didn't have a room to sleep when I came back, Ning Shu said. Chen Ning's brother swallowed a mouthful of fried dough sticks. Ning Shu said, Sister, can you lend me tens of thousands of yuan? After I get married, I will go to work. It's more convenient to have a car. Ning Shu was expressionless. I don't have any money. Didn't brother-in-law give you 150,000 yuan? Chen Ning's brother frowned and said, don't tell me you don't want to give it to me. Don't worry, I will definitely return it to you. Ning Shu thought, return. The dowry money was not enough, and now he wanted to buy a car. Was he trying to suck the marrow out of her? Chen Ning, if you really have 150,000 yuan, lend some to your brother, Chen Ning's mother said. Ning Shu asked back, why should I? I am a divorced woman. If I give you the money, how am I going to live? I have a child to raise. You want me to stay at home? You are brother and sister. You should take care of each other, Chen Ning's mother said. Why should I give it to him? He is just my brother, not his mother. Do I have to give everything to him? Ning Shu put down the nutritional supplements in her hand and said, this is what I bought for you and Dad. Remember to eat it. I'm leaving now. Ning Shu did not plan to live in the Chen family, and the Chen family did not have a room for her. She was just living under someone else's roof with a burden. Her brother was going to get married soon, and she would have another sister-in-law living under the same roof. She did not know how she would be despised. She would be gossiped about every day. I just want to borrow some money from you. It's not like I won't return it to you. Why are you so stingy? Chen Ning's brother said unhappily. I am so stingy. I just won't lend it to you. Besides, I don't have any money. This society was very indifferent. This was a materialistic world. Emotions, love, and so on were no match for money. Ning Shu turned around and was about to leave. She already had a plan in mind. She was ready to leave this city and go somewhere else to develop. Otherwise, these two people would stare at the little money in her hand and think of all kinds of ways to take the money from her. Today, they would buy a car. Tomorrow, they might buy this or that. They would say that they were borrowing from her, but in the end, they would not return it at all. They did not consider how she, a child of a divorced woman, should live. When she returned to the Chen family, she was just a person with no status. She had to do everything and had to face cold eyes. Mom, I'm leaving. Remember to eat the food. This is what I squeezed out of my teeth to show filial piety to you too. Ning Shu turned around and left. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.